Welcome all my fellow Washington brethren and sistren. I am your man and resident Washington football team fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report Live. Man, we have a humongous show tonight, and this is what we've been talking about all offseason, kind of leading up to this show. We've been building and building and building towards this particular show. We will not have another live show prior to free agency getting underway. So for all intents and purposes, we've been building towards this crescendo. And tonight, we're going to talk. This is a serious show tonight. So I hope you're locked in, you're dialed in, and you're here mentally, okay? Because we're going to be talking about some real shit tonight. All right, we're really getting to the nitty gritty of everything free agency from my brain to yours. So I'm going to give you the game tonight as spit by me, your man, Louie T. So I'm going to give you my game plan for Washington's free agency period, how I would attack it. Now, I don't know what they're going to ultimately do. And first things first, we're going to tackle Ron Rivera's presser from yesterday. A lot of interesting nuggets from that. So we're going to kind of break that down piece by piece, talk about the most notable quotes and things that were said from that presser yesterday. And we're going to get into all of your comments, and we're going to talk about my free agency wish list, my game plan, how I would attack free agency. And I'm also going to tell you what I think is ultimately going to happen for Washington as well. And listening to Ron, he kind of gave us a couple of crumbs, all right? He didn't feed us, but he dropped a couple of crumbs along the way. If you were paying attention, you caught a couple of gems he tried to drop on your melon. So there's a lot to discuss tonight. We've got a lot of things to really deep dive into. So I hope you guys are ready for the long haul. This is probably going to be a long show, more likely than not. Now, I don't know if it's going to be as long as it was last week. Okay, last week was approaching, every bit of 4 hours. It was ridiculous. It was a marathon. I didn't even realize it until we were done. But that being said, let's jump right into the first topic of the night, which was Ron Rivera's pre-free agency press conference, okay? So he stepped up to the mic yesterday, Zoom conference call with the media, addressed a number of different topics, some that really interested us, some not so much. And I thought there were a lot of interesting nuggets to kind of take away from what was said. I want to also say this before I start. We be on it here. All right. We be on it here on the LouieTeeNetwork. You guys out there and myself, we be on it because a lot of the things that we say here, they echo there. Case in point, last week, somebody super chatted. I can't quite remember exactly who it was. And it was a hell of a super chat. And I think even in the moment I said, that's a great super chat. But they said, you know what? I would like to take care of X, Y, and Z so that when we get to the draft, we don't have to worry about those things. We don't have to worry about, man, we need to get one of these because we don't have one. And I said, that's a very valid point, and I agree. You would like to take care of X, Y, and Z so you don't go in with any glaring needs so that if a player falls in your lap that you had no business having an opportunity to select and maybe don't have the biggest need to select, but because you don't have a glaring need and you don't need to draft this player over here, you can take that player. That was one of the super chats last week. What did Ron Rivera say at his presser yesterday? He says, we want to go into the draft with everything kind of shored up so that we don't have to go in with any desperate needs, making any desperate selections. And he didn't term it nor phrase it that way, but that's essentially what he's saying, which is what we said a single week ago here on the program about wanting to go into the draft without any major needs so that you don't feel the need to reach for a player or potentially bypass a guy that's sitting there that you like a little bit more than the guy at a position of need Things might be a little equal, but this guy's a little bit better, and you have a vision for him, but you can't afford to pass up this guy here at a position of need, because if you do, you won't get another crack at him. These are the types of dilemmas you run into when you don't take care of business in free agency. Thus, Ron made it abundantly clear he'd like to take care of free agency and go into the draft with clear eyes and an open mind to be able to make whatever selection there is for him on the board. So I got some super chats. I like to go ahead and knock those out before we get to anything. First super chat is from Sonny Rawson. Thank you for the super chat and getting the night kicked off, Sonny. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, "This is what I was scared of, Louie. Sheriff on that tag is like dumping salt in our Kool-Aid. Love the show. Keep up the great work, sir." I've said all along, my biggest concern was Sheriff getting a second consecutive franchise tag. I'm not concerned yet. I'm not sounding the alarm on this. I'm not happy that the franchise tag was applied, but I understand the logic behind what was done, and Ron took it a step further to explain why he did what he did. And I've already told you guys, I told you we be on it here. I told you exactly why a guy like Brandon Sheriff is too big of a personality in the locker room and a player in that locker room to just let walk away, despite us maybe thinking he's not worth $18 million, which is what the franchise tag is for a second consecutive year for Brandon Sheriff. Bottom line is, and with an oversaturated offensive lineman market, you probably wouldn't have to pay him $18 million on the open market. But that's not the point. Okay, Brandon Sheriff is worth a lot more to us in this locker room. I give you the analogy of the used car all the time. If it's your used car, you bought and you paid for it, you own the title, and to you, that car has a value. Okay, and let's say you're willing to sell it for $3,000, and somebody tries to pitch you a deal and an offer for $2,000, and you're like, no, I want $3,000, not a penny less. And they're saying, well, I don't have $3,000, all I got is $2,000. And you say, well, you don't have a deal, have a good day. You know why? Because at the end of the day, that car has value to you. Okay, same thing with Brandon Sheriff here. He has value to us, and this is the thing that you have to take into consideration when you're starting over from scratch, as Rivera did last season. And you're coming in, and your biggest thing that you are looking to do, your biggest objective is creating a brand new culture. One of the guys in the locker room that helps set the tone is Brandon Sheriff. He's one of the longest tenured members of this football team. I think it's Morgan Moses, and then it's Brandon Sheriff. They're both team captains, okay? And Sheriff is a guy that just continues to do the things that you want captains and leaders in your locker room to do. He was the first All-Pro for Washington since like 1998, okay? First All-Pro. Let that sink in. It was none of the guys that you think over the years that have been really good for us. They weren't all pros, not even Trent Williams. It's Brandon Sheriff. So he's got all of these things under his belt. But the biggest thing that I've told you all along, and Rivera actually said these exact words from his lips. I told you this 2 months ago. I told you this last month. I told you this last week. The reason you want to sign a guy like Brandon Sheriff is because you want to send a message to the rest of the locker room that if you do it the right way, if you do what we're asking you to do, you're going to be rewarded by us here. You don't need to get paid somewhere else. If you do the things we ask you to do, and you do it the right way, and you're a captain, and you've done everything possible to be one of the best players, not only on this team, but one of the best leaders on this team, we're going to show everybody else in the locker room that if you do it the right way, you're going to be rewarded here. And that's the message that they failed to send with this organization over the last 2 decades. A lot of times guys have had to go elsewhere to get their bread. Even if they were viewed as one of the better players in the locker room, even if they were viewed as a captain, even if they were an integral part of this team, there was always something shinier out there for Daniel Snyder and company. If Rivera wants to set the tone for what it's going to be like being a member of the Washington football team, re-signing a guy like Brandon Sheriff is one of his first orders of business, if you ask me. And he pretty much made that abundantly clear at his presser yesterday. So I'm not resigned to the fact that we tagged him a second straight time, because there is hope that a long-term deal still gets hammered out. We've got up until the middle of July for them to figure that out. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later, but that's why I'm still optimistic on Brandon Sheriff. But I understand why you feel the way that you do. Got another super chat. This one is from Rob U. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U. Greatly appreciate you, my man Rob U. Writes, what up, Lou? Sheriff is a beast when healthy, but 18 mil for a guard. Thanks for your service, fam, but I got to pass. Plan B options. Look, there isn't a plan B, okay, Rob? Sorry. They slapped the franchise tag. I mean, theoretically, they could rescind it, but you don't usually do that. We've only seen that happen once in the last decade. And I don't know how many times that's actually ever happened other than Josh Norman in Carolina about 5-6 years ago when we ultimately signed him after the franchise tag was rescinded by Dave Gettleman. It doesn't happen very often. When you slap the franchise tag on a guy, it's because you don't want to lose that player. And this is the only way you feel like you'll be able to retain their services, and you're still trying to hammer out a long-term deal. That's what the franchise tag is for. It's in good faith to the player that the team is trying to work out a long-term deal, and in that process, we don't want to lose you, so we want to have exclusive rights to deal with you. And so, for me, I get it that Brandon Sheriff, $18 million price tag for a guard isn't ideal, but it's not the end, okay? We haven't turned the page on this. It isn't period, end of discussion. There's still time. So you guys have to understand it. This isn't over. It's not ideal, and you've got $18 million essentially tied up right now to Brandon Sheriff that can't move. You can't wheel and deal it, but we're not hurting for cash. We're not strapped. It'd be one thing if we were up against it and you're doing this and you're like, come on, man, we could be doing so many things with this money. We're good, man. We're good. That 18 mil can sit over there and chill. It can be on ice, and we're not hurting for it. But keep in mind, they've still got up until July, okay? So essentially, they've got another 4 months to figure it out with Brandon Sheriff. Let's hope that they do. And again, hopefully it's much sooner rather than later. But there are no plan Bs. They slapped the franchise tag on him. It'd be one thing if they didn't slap the franchise tag and Ron has made it abundantly clear that they wanted him back, similar to the Buffalo Bills with Matt Milano, where they didn't slap the franchise tag on him, but guess what? They signed him before free agency started. They had a plan. They didn't want to slap the franchise tag on him just in case it didn't work out, but they wanted him back. And it'd be one thing if we didn't slap the franchise tag on Brandon Sheriff, but they wanted him back and they were actively trying to get a deal done before the start of the new league year, before free agency kicked off so that they didn't lose him. Then you could be thinking about plan B options just in case the deal doesn't get done and Sheriff finds greener pastures elsewhere. That's not happening. He's here now. You know, whether you like it or not, whether it's on the franchise tag or not, he's here. So there are no plan Bs. It is what it is. They slapped the tag on him. He'll be playing for Washington in 2021. And I want him to. I've made that abundantly clear. I just don't want it to be on a second tag. And it's not guaranteed to be on a second tag. Okay? So, again, give it some time. Let the process play itself out. And let's see what happens. Ron's playing. Okay? Let's see what Ron's plan has in store for Brandon Sheriff and a potential long-term deal. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U. Got another one here. And Sonny Rawson. Got another one here from DMV fan 1, 2, 3. All right, I think I said 3. I'm over here bruh manning on the 5th flow on y'all. DMV fan 123 writes, feel like Sheriff is gonna finesse us in the end to maximize his earning potential. Not that I can fault any player for that. Get to the bag. This isn't on Brandon Sheriff. This is on the organization. It's always the player's job to get the most money that he possibly can. Now, it all depends on what you value. If you value winning and you feel like you taking less is going to help the team out, by all means. To me, it's never in the best interest of a player that's a non-quarterback to do that. If you're a quarterback and you're a franchise quarterback and you know that you taking less is going to allow the team to, because no contract is going to be higher than that of a franchise quarterback. No player on the team is going to have a contract that exceeds that of a franchise quarterback. It's not going to ever happen on an NFL roster. If you have a Patrick Mahomes or you have a Russell Wilson or a Deshaun Watson or one of these guys, Dak Prescott, one of these franchise quarterbacks, we peg you as the guy. There will never be another one, another of the 52 other guys on the roster that will exceed that contract. So, in other words, if you want to take less because you're the guy that's getting paid the most money, that will benefit the team, and that's your prerogative. And again, if you're the quarterback, you're more likely to have a chance to make endorsements off the field to supplement your salary and offset the savings that you may have given the team. When you're an offensive guard, we don't see Brandon Sheriff doing, beef jerky commercials. We don't see him doing lumberjack commercials. We don't see Brandon Sheriff doing any endorsements. I don't know if he wants to or not. That's not the point. How often is it that a guard is getting endorsements off the field? Very rare, if at all. So what I'm saying is you maximize your value. Period. End of discussion. And that's what Brandon is doing. It's up to the team to make sure that he's not able to swindle them by giving him a deal that keeps him here long term and not paying him on a year-to-year basis with the franchise tag, which is the top 5 salaries combined and then getting the average of it. Okay, so it's the team's job to make sure you don't find yourself in this position. Well, they haven't done a good job of making sure that they didn't find themselves in this position. Hence, they are in this position, and that's not Brandon's fault. I don't blame him, and I would tell him to get every single penny that he can. Extract them for all that they're willing to pay you. It's their job to say, all right, Brandon, enough of the shenanigans. Here's the deal. And if they're not willing to get to a place where they can meet, then that's why that would be a position where you say, all right, we're not slapping the franchise tag on you. You go out there and you see if you can get the money that we just offered you. And if you don't find a deal better than the one we put forth and you want to come back, the deal will still be here when you come back. But if you find a better deal than the one we're offering you and you want to sign that, go right ahead, be my guest. So they could have done that. They didn't. That's not Brandon's fault. He didn't tell them to slap the franchise tag on him. They did that. Ron said it himself. I made that decision. That was a unilateral decision. That wasn't Marty Herney. That wasn't Martin Mayhew. They just got here. They weren't here with Brandon last year like Ron was. He didn't see the dynamic between Brandon Sheriff and the rest of his teammates. He didn't see the work ethic. He didn't see what Brandon Sheriff means to this organization and the new culture change. So for them, he's just another guy. Yeah, he's an all-pro guard. We saw that. That's great. He's awesome. They might not have wanted to spend $18 million on a franchise tag on Brandon Sheriff. But Ron said, trust me, guys, he's worth it. We're going to figure out a long-term deal. So I don't think he's finessing us. He's not doing anything that they're not allowing him to do. Just think of it that way. He's not doing anything that they're not allowing him to do. Got another super chat. This one is from JP. Thank you for the super chat, JP. My man John Perez writes, did you hear that 27 teams, including Washington, are attending Trey Lance's pro day tomorrow? I did not hear about 27 teams. I did know that Washington was going to be in attendance. As a matter of fact, Martin Mayhew and Scott Turner are going to be in attendance. So, again, they went to Trey Lance's one collegiate game. They sent scouts there. Washington did. So, again, you have to do your due diligence, even if you're not going to have a chance to select Trey Lance. In the event that that does come up, you want to be prepared. We don't know what's going to happen on draft day. We assume that 5 quarterbacks could go in the first 15 picks. We assume that 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 8 picks. But what if it doesn't happen that way? What if only 3 guys go and the odd man out is Trey Lance and he starts to slide? And when Washington shows up on the clock at 19, he's available. Or what if he's available at 12 and Washington's like, this is the guy. This is the guy. He's right in our wheelhouse. We can strike now at 12. Okay, well, go get him. You do your work. And even if you never have a chance to sniff Trey Lance, at least you have a book on him. You've prepared. And let's say he ends up landing in this division because we just don't know. What if the Eagles at 6 decide, you know what? We're pulling the trigger on Trey Lance. We'll let him and we'll let Jalen Hurts battle it out. They got similar games. Let them battle it out to see who deserves to be the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward. Well, now you got a book on him. You've done all the work that you need to do on him. You know his strengths, you know his weaknesses, and you're better prepared to do battle with Trey Lance. There's all of these things that are moving parts when you talk about the evaluation process. At the end of the day, they're doing the due diligence. So I'm not surprised. Got another super chat. This one is from Martin Matthews. Thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Double M writes, hey, Louie. Speaking of wish list, I think we have a chance at Russell Wilson. He may be done in Seattle. He put his O-line under the bus again, and I don't think Chicago can afford him. Okay, so I just want you to understand that we've had this discussion already, okay? Russell Wilson has a no-trade clause, much like Deshaun Watson. If you're a premier quarterback in this league, or just a premier player for that matter, it doesn't necessarily have to be a quarterback. If you're an upper-tier tackle or an upper-tier edge rusher, you probably have a no-trade clause in your contract somewhere. That said, Russell Wilson has a no-trade clause. We've already discussed this like 2-3 weeks ago when this rumor first came about, when he jumped on the Dan Patrick show and had the discussion about wanting more control, more say-so over the roster and what they do. And then all of these rumors started coming out that he's not happy and Seattle's not happy with the way Russ handled this situation and this, that, and the third. But don't forget about this. Don't allow this to get lost in the sauce. When all of this started to come out, Russ's handler said, hey, Russ isn't looking for a deal. He's not looking for a trade. But in the event that you do want to do a deal, here are the 4 destinations that we would like to be traded to. And they listed 4 destinations. Washington wasn't one of them. Okay? Keep that in mind. He can veto any trade that he wants. I don't care how good the deal is. If he doesn't want to play there, then he doesn't have to play there. So we've already established that he's not coming here. Okay? He's not coming here. So any ideas of grandeur of getting a Russell Wilson or a Deshaun Watson, probably not happening. So just wipe that from your memory bank right now. Okay? I forget the 4 teams. It was something like Dallas, New Orleans, Chicago, and New York or something like that. Or Vegas, excuse me. I think it was Vegas, New Orleans, Chicago, and Dallas. Those were the 4 destinations, I believe. I could be off on one of them. We weren't one of them. That's all you need to know. So I don't think that you should be concerning yourself with guys like Russell Wilson. They don't want to play here. And I don't blame them, and neither should you. Okay? We have to prove over time that this is a stable organization and that you should come here because you have a chance to not only win here, but not to be wrapped up and embroiled in controversy and dysfunctionality. Okay? Until we prove that Not just 1 or 2 years. Until we prove that for 5, 6, 7 years, then nobody's going to want to come here of note with that kind of legacy to lead. Okay? So, I wouldn't, if I'm you, Martin, I would not concern myself with a guy like Russell Wilson. Thank you for that super chat, Double M. Got a super chat here from King of the North. Thank you for the super chat, King of the North. Greatly appreciate you. As always, my man King of the North writes, are there really that many teams ready to compete over free agents? I say we strike quick for one A-plus guy and just sit tight and wait for the market to settle. So many good teams are in cap trouble and virtually out of the game this year. It feels that way, King of the North, and that's a great observation by you that it's not the same game that it normally is this time of the year, but don't fool yourselves, okay? Teams are scrambling to get under the cap and get into a position where they can make some moves. There's still teams out here with ample free agent dollars. We're not number one, okay? And even though we're in the top 5, I think we're something like 3 or 4 after the Alex Smith release. It doesn't matter because there are teams behind us that have money to spend as well. Like, don't fool yourself. There's probably about 2/3 of the league that are like, nah, we good. We going to kind of sit this thing out. Y'all go have fun and we'll let the market settle. And there'll be some guys left. And that's when we'll go in there and we'll go to the back of the store and get us a couple of clearance items, a couple of pink tag and orange tag items. There's still 1/3 of the league with cap space, eager to spend. Cleveland and New England and Jacksonville, just to name a few, ready to spend, okay? Won't hesitate. And I've already told you, he who hesitates is last. So, I'm with you. Go get your A-plus guy. And then, I'm not saying wait. I'm saying be aggressive early and often. Get all the shit you need and get out. And then we can double back later. If the one item that I want is still there, then you double back later and go get it. But for me, personally, I think you got to be aggressive early. Don't wait. Don't let the market set prices that are inflated for guys, and then your client, the guy that you want, is saying, well, shit, if he got that, I should get this. No, you go in, you give him a deal that he can't refuse, he signs on the dotted line, and then you move on to the next guy that you want. And I think they should be really aggressive, and we'll talk more about that later on in the show because I've got my plan for how I want things to go, how I think things to go, how I would attack free agency. It's not too much different from what you're suggesting, King of the North. It's not too far off, except I wouldn't just stop with that one A-plus player. I would still be aggressive. It won't be a bunch of A-plus players. I'm not going after a bunch of A-listers because they cost a lot of money. And I would be very careful as to what positions I went after A-listers at. However, I'm going to be aggressive early, get my guys, and get out. And then if I need to go back into the bargain bin a little bit later on, I would do that. Got another super chat. This one is from my man JP. Double up. Thank you for the super chat and doubling up, JP. Greatly appreciate you. My man John Perez writes, Galladay, Fuller, or Samuel to DC. If I had it my way, none of them. Not a single one of them. I don't think that it would be smart or wise to go after any of those guys. And that's a little bit too much information right there, honestly speaking, because I want to save that for my show later on, or save it for later on in today's show. But I can just tell you that, and I'll explain why. You already know I don't want Curtis Samuel. And we'll talk about that a little bit in greater detail later on in the show. But I don't think any of those guys end up here. First of all, I don't think any of those guys end up here. And I don't think that, and I told you, I'm going to give you the game tonight. Excuse me. This is going to be some real. We talking about the reals tonight, okay? Like I'm giving you some inside shit. Like I'm making you think and look at it from a different perspective because all we do, a lot of times, I shouldn't say we because I don't think this way, but a lot of you out there, you play Madden with this stuff, with free agency. Get this guy because he's a name. Get this guy because he's a beast. Get this guy. And you're not thinking about ramifications of 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. You got to play chess. Y'all out here playing checkers, man. Y'all want instant gratification. Ron has already said, and we're going to talk about what Ron had to say. Ron said, I'm not in it for the short term. I'm looking at the big picture, man. Got to make sure I set these pieces up correctly. One wrong move will get you got. Next thing you know, another team in the division is saying checkmate. So, got to be careful. Making a move like getting a Kenny Golladay or a Fuller will get you got 3 years from now. Rob U, thank you for the super chat. Rob U, greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Rob U, who writes, Lou, if Mariota is cut and he signs here and one of the QBs in the draft falls into your lap, Fields or Lance, do you take them? If I had a high grade on either one of those guys, absolutely. You don't pass that up. If I had a first round grade and we all agreed that this was one of the guys that we pegged as a franchise quarterback that we felt like could give us a chance for the next decade plus, you're damn right you do. Marcus Mariota had his chance to be the unquestioned guy in Tennessee. If you sign Marcus Mariota, it's no more than a 1-2 year deal. You know, you're not going to break the bank to sign Marcus Mariota. You're not signing him to a Ryan Tannehill-esque deal. Tannehill had to go prove himself, take the Titans to the AFC Championship game to get the deal that he got. He'd be signing a 1-2 year deal max. And if it's a 2-year deal, probably with the team option on that second year where they could get out of the deal after 1 year. So, yeah, Marcus Mariota doesn't stop you from drafting a young quarterback if you have a high grade on that guy and he falls in your lap. So, yes, you would still take that quarterback. No doubt about that whatsoever. King of the North. Double up. My man, King of the North, thank you for doubling up. Greatly appreciate you. King of the North writes, Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith? That's not even a real question, honestly speaking. Hunter Henry is one of the best tight ends in football. He's one of the best, two-way tight ends, blocker and receiver. There aren't many complete tight ends. We can talk about the pass catchers in this league all day long. But the thing that made Rob Gronkowski so special is because he was just as dominant a blocker as he was a receiver. Travis Kelce can block, but he's not a, destroy you in the run game type of guy. And I'm not saying Hunter Henry is, but Hunter Henry gets it done in the run game. Darren Waller isn't a blocker at all. So when we talk about Darren Waller, he's a pass catcher. He's a difference maker as a pass catcher, but he's not a complete tight end. There aren't many of these guys. We're going to talk a lot about Kyle Pitts, and he's such a dynamic player, and whomever gets him is getting a stud, and he's going to come in and wreck shop and become one of the better tight ends in the league immediately if he is what we think he is. But he's not a tremendous blocker either. Again, these are the things that you have to take into consideration. Hunter Henry is a good blocker. He is a good pass catcher. It's rare to get that in one body at the tight end position in today's NFL. And so it's Hunter Henry all day, twice on Sundays, and Jonnu Smith isn't a bad option B. To me, they're the only two tight ends in this free agency crop worth taking a sniff at. If you can't get either one of those guys, I don't want anybody in free agency personally. Rob U, thank you for tripling up. Greatly appreciate you. Rob U, who writes, are options still plentiful at free agent for wide receivers? Yes, they are. I mean, honestly, you only had two guys come off of the board at the wide receiver position in free agency, and we expected both of them to potentially be franchise taggees, and so they were. That this isn't like it would have been shocking if a guy like Curtis Samuel received the franchise tag. Whoa, didn't see that coming. You know, Corey Davis receives a franchise tag. Whoa, didn't see that coming. That would have been something that would have been a little bit, surprising and might have thrown a wrench in your plans. But Kenny Golladay was a guy that we knew could get the franchise tag. Luckily, Detroit didn't slap the franchise tag on him. We knew Allen Robinson was a franchise tag candidate in Chicago. They elected to slap the franchise tag on him. And we knew Chris Godwin was a franchise tag potential player in Tampa Bay. And they decided to keep him in Tampa for at least one more year while they try to sort out the details of a long-term deal. Those aren't surprises. Those were all guys that we assumed could be tagged. 2 out of the 3 got tagged. 1 didn't. So the wide receiver pool still looks pretty much the same as we anticipated it would. Allen Robinson and Kenny Golladay and Chris Godwin were all guys that we thought, yeah, they could probably get franchise tagged. They may not see the light of day of free agency. 2 out of the 3 got tagged. Kenny Golladay was the one left standing, and so we'll throw him in the mix with the rest of the guys. Still a bunch of free agent wide receivers available. And again, it's just what you're looking for. And I'm specific, I'm picky. So I want what I want. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Creative state of mind, or creative mind state. Game Dev, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Creative Mind State writes, hey Lou, hear every show, love the content, but Cowboys NFC East champs and Super Bowl contenders. Yo, whoa. If you're talking about the video I did on Dak Prescott, first of all, nowhere in there did I say that they were Super Bowl contenders. So slow your roll, pump your brakes. And drive slow, homie. Drive slow. Now, I did say that I've said this is not a surprise. If you say you've been here every show, so you know this is not a surprise. You shouldn't have been shocked by anything that I've said, because I've said it multiple times. The Cowboys have the most talented roster in the division. We can debate that if you want. But if we go position by position, the Cowboys are going to check the most boxes. Okay? And I, for one, don't think their defense is as bad as everybody else does. Look, they've got some issues in their secondary. That is an understatement. Corner and safety is a problem in Dallas. But the linebacker position and the defensive line are still good. And they had a rough go of it last season. And I think they were asked to do some things. And I thought a lot of guys were playing hero ball. And they had a doofus for a defensive coordinator. And so shit went sideways quickly. And they couldn't stop the bleeding. They got the right guy in Dan Quinn to come in and stabilize. He's not going to have them doing a million different things. They're going to be playing cover 3, and he's going to keep everything in front of them, and he's going to simplify the defense. There's not going to be as much thinking, and they're going to go out and they're going to play a lot better. So I think they're going to fix that defense a lot faster than a lot of you probably do. That's nor here nor there. The bottom line is they're a talented team. If they play up to the level that they're capable of playing, they're better than everybody else in the division. That's the fact of the matter. And then that's not even discussing the fact that they're the only team with a stable quarterback position. Only the most important position, not just in the NFL, in sports. And they're the only team in the division with any kind of stability there. How could you not have Dallas as the favorite in the division? Just because we won 7 games and won the division? It'd be one thing if we ran away with the division at 10-6. And the next closest team was 6-9-1, or the next closest team was 6-10, then yeah, you could say, man, we run this. We had to sweat it out against a bunch of backups in week 17 to get the divisional crown. I'm not giving it back. I already told you. The champ's ahead. The champ's ahead. But make no mistake about it. Had Dak Prescott played last season, all 16 games, do you think for 1 second that they wouldn't have won 2 more games with Dak Prescott playing instead of JMU or Andy Dalton? Or Garrett Gilbert? Come on, man, stop. And that's what I was saying, essentially, is that they would have won the division last year if Dak. First of all, it was funny because my man JP during the Dak video was like, well, that's 2 guaranteed wins for us. He was being facetious. I know he was, because he couldn't have meant that, because Dak owns us. Dak owns us. We've only beaten them 1 time. 1 time. And we needed a missed field goal at the end of regulation to do it. We beat him 1 time. So he's been a thorn in our side. So he would have probably beaten us at least once this season. Maybe twice. Who's to say? Bottom line is, with Dak Prescott healthy and leading that team, they're the best right now in the NFC East. Things could change, okay? We could have a hell of an offseason. We can go ape shit in free agency. We could kill the draft, and we could look at this roster, and we could say, you know what? We ready to do some things, okay? We ready to compete. Even if the quarterback is still iffy and we got to go into camp with a Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen quarterback battle, so what? So be it. But we got some shit now. And if we get anything out of the quarterback position, we're going to be hell to deal with. That could be the case. But right now, on paper, the Cowboys have the best roster in the division. To me, I don't think it's even debatable. So, I never said anything about Super Bowl contenders. You didn't hear that from my mouth. So, NFC East champions, yeah. I first of all, they got to take it from us. It's our division until it's ripped from our hands. But we, as Ron so eloquently put it, we got a first place schedule next year. Okay? And if they add a 17th game, we'll be playing Buffalo, while Dallas will be playing the Patriots. I think it'll be the Patriots. Yeah, it'll be the Patriots. So, again, and I don't know, the Patriots might be good next year. They probably won't. We'll see what they do with all this cap space that they have. But bottom line is, Dak Prescott makes a difference. A franchise quarterback makes a difference. We currently don't have one of those. So, just off of the strength of that, I think you have to put Dallas ahead of us. Thank you for the super chat, Creative Mind State. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat, Red Wings 01, who writes, best case scenario, Sheriff agrees to take $12 million this year and then 15 to 17 the next 3 years. I mean, that's why you want a long-term deal, because you can play with the numbers. That's the whole purpose behind getting Brandon Sheriff to ink a long-term deal. I mean, look at the Dak Prescott deal. The man's getting $75 million in year 1. They were able to finagle the amount of money throughout the course of his contract. It's a 6-year contract that they voided to make it a 4-year deal, but they've been able to spread the money out so that it doesn't hurt Dallas in the interim. It gives them the flexibility to do some things to keep this roster competitive. That's what a long-term deal, you can get creative with it. So that's why it is imperative that they find a way to get a deal done with Brandon Sheriff long-term. Let's see. Got another super chat. This next one is from Rob U. Thank you for your 4th super chat of the night, Rob U, who writes, I don't know. He said, I know interceptions don't tell the whole story, but does Darby's lack of INTs help with negotiations? Hate to create a need for a position I feel okay about. You're spot on. When an agent sits down in a room or an agent is on the phone with a team, one of the things that agent uses in negotiations are Pro Bowl appearances, All Pro appearances, if you've got any of those. And then we go to the stats and we start talking about interceptions. We talk about forced fumbles. We talk about tackles. We talk about pass breakups. And then we start looking at guys comparable at the position and what they're being paid. And if you feel like your client's better than that guy, then your client should be paid more. And so we start talking about comps. Hey, my guy looks like this guy. This guy is getting $11 million per year. My guy's better than him. My guy's played more games than him. He plays more snaps. My guy should be paid more than him. That's how negotiations go. So when you say Darby doesn't have any interceptions, that's one of the things Washington's going to hold against him. I don't know if you remember Darby, and I know all of you don't watch these pressers when they happen, but late in the season, Darby was asked about his impending free agency. This was like week 16, 17, something like that. And Darby, they asked him, do you think you deserve to be paid, this offseason? And Darby said, well, what do you think? Do you think I should get paid? He said, I can tell you this, I ain't got no interceptions. So the fact that the first thing that popped in his mind when talking about his contract was the fact that he didn't have any picks tells you that that's a big part of the negotiations. But bottom line is, yes, that does help. But it's, as you mentioned, it's not the only thing when you're talking about a corner or any position for that matter. It's not just the stats. You can watch the game and see the impact that a player has. Darby had a massive impact on this defense last year. The biggest thing for him is, can he stay healthy? If I'm Washington, I'm going to look at Ronald Darby's career and say, look, bro, you haven't been healthy. This was the first year you were healthy. How do I know you don't revert back to the old Ronald Darby that couldn't stay healthy? And so these are the things that you go back and forth on when you're talking about a deal. At the end of the day, I think Ronald Darby is a guy that they want back. And you're right. We don't want to create holes on the roster where we don't currently have them. So I think that they're going to find a way to get to a nice middle ground between the two sides, and they'll figure something out with Ronald Darby coming back to Washington. He had arguably the best year of his career. Yeah, he didn't have any picks, but Darby was as consistent as the day was long in 2020, and we'd like to see him come back. And he was close to getting some picks, even in week one. Wentz threw up a deep ball in the double coverage, and Darby, if not for the ground and the impact of it, he would have picked that off. He was close on several occasions to picking passes off in 2020. He'll get his fair share if he's back in Washington and he continues to play at the level he played at last season. Thank you for that super chat, Rob U. HTTR a lot. Thank you for the super chat, HTTR a lot, who writes, move Landon Collins to linebacker and get Earl Thomas, end of the story, #757. Neither of those things are going to happen, and neither of those things need to happen. Earl Thomas's career is done. I don't think he'll get signed again, nor should he. He was on the decline before he was released by Baltimore. It's not a surprise that nobody signed him, despite him being available last season, during the season. Somebody could have signed him for the stretch, just like Kenny Stills got signed, at the end of the season for the Bills stretch run, even though I don't think he even played. Just having a guy like Earl Thomas on your roster, I don't know if Earl would have been cool with just being around, but it doesn't matter. Nobody even sniffed around Earl Thomas. I think his career is done. And it's crazy how these safeties that were once thought to be one of the best safeties in the league, it's amazing how quickly their careers just go just like that. I mean, what happened to Eric Berry? Eric Berry is one of the best safeties in football. He then has cancer. He comes back. He's one of the best safeties in football again. He gets released by the Chiefs. Never hears from him again. I don't know what the hell happened. Eric Berry's gone, and nobody's talking about Eric Berry. And never saw him again. I think we're going to see the same thing with Earl Thomas. I think he might be done. We'll see. He could get a job. But he had some issues off the field. He was starting to slow a step. Maybe it's the end for Earl Thomas. We'll see. But I can tell you this much. They don't want Earl Thomas's drama here in Washington. So you don't have to worry about that. Rob U. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U. fifth super chat from my man Rob. You can't see you right now. Greatly appreciate you, Rob. You who writes, Lou, have you warmed up to Winston here yet? I'm open to just about anything at the quarterback position. Anything sans for Ryan Fitzpatrick or Teddy Bridgewater. I'm pretty much open, and Jacoby Brissett. I'm pretty much open to just about anything here. You know, Winston, Mariota, Sam Darnold. I'm open to all of it, man. Pretty much open to all of that stuff at this point. I'm not as big on Winston, honestly. But if they said, look, we know the kid is talented, which we do, and we think that this guy has a chance to, you know, just curtail the interceptions a bit, I'd be willing to give it a run. I mean, what do we got to lose? But I personally wouldn't like to go down the Winston road. I would like to steer clear of that and just go in a different direction. But if they said Winston at 27 years old is a guy that gives you a shot, and I gave my top 23 free agents of the 2021 free agency period. I've put that out on the podcast yesterday. I think Winston was, matter of fact, I'm looking at my list right now. Jameis Winston was 11 on that list. So that tells you that I feel like he's got value to somebody. That somebody could be Washington. I can tell you this, listening to Ron, he wants to do something at quarterback. I've already said that before. And Ron, every time I hear him speak, I hear the same thing. I'm not satisfied with what I have at quarterback. I'm not going to do anything crazy, but I'd like to do something. And Jameis Winston would be something. So am I open to that? Sure. Am I warming up to it? Yeah, absolutely. Do I want to do that? No, I don't. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. I wouldn't be, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. Like if they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'd be pissed if they did that. Absolutely livid if they did that. I wouldn't be if they did that with Jameis Winston. So thank you for the super chat, Rob. You got another super chat here from Kevin, the PRF. Thank you for the super chat, Kev, who writes, name 3 things you would do long-term to get players to want to come here. P.S. Ricardo been fighting to get out of your hat all night. Hashtag free Ricardo. His name is Ramon. Okay? Free Ramon, not Ricardo. Okay? Ricardo might be his cousin that I don't know about. But anyway, I digress. You know what? Why the hell not? No, that might be a distraction. Let me put it back a little bit. Anyway, if you don't watch the podcast, then you have no idea what we're talking about. But if you do, then you know exactly what we're talking about. Anyway, I digress. 3 things you would do to want players to come here. Well, the first thing, the obvious thing, is to win. Okay? Winning is the best deodorant known to mankind. Okay? If you win, people tend to forget about all of the other shenanigans. New England is a miserable place to be. But if you win, it's okay. People are willing to put up with the New England, the Patriot way. People are willing to put up with what Cam Newton described as being mentally, what did he say? You can be fatigued mentally in New England, and putting up with the mental gymnastics of what the Patriots put you through to be prepared. When you win, you erase a lot of the noise. You cancel it out. So winning would be the first thing. The second thing is you would need to have Daniel Snyder stay out of it, everything. And honestly, that's probably number 1, and then winning would be second. I think the biggest thing that people pay attention to with this organization is just the dysfunction. And if I'm Russell Wilson, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I told you Matthew Stafford came out after he was traded and said, it wasn't just New England that I didn't want to go to. I had a list of teams that I said, hey, don't trade me here, please. He didn't divulge the teams that were on the list. I bet you Washington was one of those teams. I bet any amount of money. You know why? Because there's a stigma around the league that organization is the worst. You don't want to go there. And they're not winning. So it makes it 2 times worse. So, you can put it 1A, 1B, whatever you like. Daniel Snyder has to keep his damn nose out of football affairs, and we need to win. Those are the first 2 things. And then the third thing is you have to create an environment and a culture that other players want to be a part of. And again, that starts with winning, okay? You could have the most exciting team in football, but if you're going 7-9, 6-10, and 8-8 every year, who gives a shit? But you want to create a culture because players talk. It's a fraternity. Guys hang out with each other in the offseason. Guys work out at the same facilities. Guys are run by the same management companies. Guys go to the Pro Bowl and they talk when they're at the Pro Bowl. They talk at the NFL awards ceremony right before the Super Bowl. Guys talk. And if you are able to say, hey, man, we're building something in Washington, and they can see it themselves, and they see how the players are treated there, and they see that they're taking care of their players, it makes other guys want to be a part of that. So those are the 3 things I think you can do, is have your owner stay the hell out of football affairs, win football games. To me is the first thing. For some of you, it's, hey, Dan needs to stay as far away from the football operations as possible. I won't disagree with that. But winning can even drown that noise out. You win, and people will forget about all the shenanigans going on. And then the third thing is create an environment where people want to be a part of it. And we're still not there yet. Ron's trying to do that, but we're not there. This is a massive offseason. Just like I said, tonight's a big show. This is a big offseason, and that's why this show is so big. Because we're going to talk about the magnitude of this offseason with this football team, with this organization. We've got a chance to take a monumental step forward this offseason. We've got momentum. You don't know if you're going to ever have this kind of momentum again if you're Ron Rivera. You can't assume that next year you're going to continue to build off of what you did last year. We might hit rock bottom this year with injuries and record-wise, and we might be 4-13 this upcoming season if there's 17 games. And there is no momentum. And all of the Ron's plan and this, that, and the third, all of that shit's gone to hell in a handbasket, and we're now looking at him like Mike Shanahan, and we're looking at him like Jim Zorn, and we're looking at him like Jay Gruden, like, man, this guy doesn't get it. He's just like the rest of them. He's got momentum now. Seize it. So, to me, if I were Ron Rivera, I'm looking to continue to build that culture this year, and that's another reason why this is such a big offseason, because we're going to see just how much guys want to be a part of this organization, and not just from a money standpoint. You know, if you're looking to get paid and somebody offers you the best contract, you'll just go there. At some point, though, for some guys, it's not about the money. It's about a situation that I could see myself in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. So, and yeah, money matters. Don't kid yourself. But also, is this an organization I can see myself growing with? We'll see. Thank you for the super chat, Kev. Greatly appreciate you. Christian Sorto, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Christian Sorto writes, Lou, how do you feel about Minshew? I really don't feel any type of way about Gardner Minshew. The fact that he couldn't get on the field last year, and I kind of felt like Jacksonville was tanking. I talked to a Jacksonville Jaguars fan that told me I was wrong, that told me Minshew was absolutely awful, which is why he got benched. after he had the injury and they didn't give him another opportunity. I beg to differ. I think they were trying to get the number one pick in the draft, and they successfully did that. Because if you ask me, Gardner Minshew gave them the best chance to win. That's nor here nor there. Bottom line is, Gardner Minshew is a backup quarterback in this league. He doesn't have a high ceiling. I'm not a massive Gardner Minshew fan. Never was, never will be. So, I put him in the same category with Jacoby Brissett and Teddy Bridgewater. I don't want any parts of guys like that. You know, we got two guys that are here, that know the system, that were undrafted. If you're going to go that route, you're going to go the Gardner Minshew route, just stick with the guys you already have. Like, we don't need any more late round to undrafted guys. We got two of them on the roster already. And for those of you not in the loop, Kyle Allen was tendered today, okay, which we expected him to be. He was a restricted free agent, meaning Washington could extend a tender to him and keep him here. It's a qualifying offer. He'll sign it. He'll be here in Washington. And we got two of them on the roster already. Why do you want to add another late round undrafted type of guy in Gardner Minshew? And I'm not saying that's what you want to do. You're just asking me what do I think about Gardner Minshew. I don't think very highly of him. He's a backup in this league. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, King of the North. Greatly appreciate what you've done tripling up tonight. My man King of the North writes, I'm warming up to Juju. He's young, he's durable, he's produced, and I think he's a good compliment to Terry. Will Ron overlook the TikTok stuff? Here's the problem I have with getting a Juju Smith-Schuster. And I told you, I'm going to give you all the game tonight. So you guys, if you need to, take notes. But a lot of you don't need it. It syncs up here, and then you usually regurgitate that stuff back into my face if I'm wrong, which I don't mind at all. Okay? Hold me to that shit. If I say something, hold me to it. You got to understand what you're doing. And I told you, I'm not going to give you the game right now. I'm going to do that later. But Juju is interesting. I like his game. I wouldn't have any problems. And you're right, he is young. He's way younger than you're accustomed to seeing at this juncture of his career. You know, at the end of a rookie deal, usually guys are 25, 20. Normally they're right around 26. But he's not a first round pick. So you could take off a year. They didn't slap a franchise tag on him, but he's still 24 years old. As I mentioned on the podcast yesterday, he could sign a 4-year deal and be 28 at the end of that deal. He could sign a 5-year deal and be 29 and still get another bite at the apple. He's super young. You're right, he's durable. He's produced. I like him a lot. I don't like the price tag that's going to be associated with Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he was the biggest beneficiary of those two receivers, Godwin and Allen Robinson, getting franchise tagged. Because now Galladay's value shoots up because he's viewed as the true number one guy that's left on the market. And if you perceive Juju Smith-Schuster to be a true number one, his value then skyrockets as well. I don't think he's a true number one. I think he's a very high-end two, one of the better number two options available. But somebody's going to pay him like a bona fide stud one. I don't want to be the team that does it. Let's see. Damn Twin Shorty Sublime. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Damn Twin Shorty Sublime writes, I know this is not likely, but my wish list would be JOK at 19, okay? Jeremiah Owosu, Koromoa, sign Hunter Henry, Kenny Galladay, and Sam Darnold. Are we serious contenders if we do that? No. You couldn't directly say that because Sam Darnold isn't Matthew Stafford. But does it give you a chance? Absolutely. If Sam Darnold turns into what the Jets drafted him to be with that talent around him, absolutely we're contenders. For what? I don't think we're Super Bowl contenders, but we're contenders to win the division again and win a playoff game and make some noise in the conference. Sure, why not? But that's assuming Sam Darnold or whomever's playing quarterback, doesn't necessarily have to be Sam Darnold, is able to elevate his level of play and match the team around him, or elevate his play and carry the team, which highly unlikely with the quarterbacks we have in adding Sam Darnold to that mix. That said, that'd be a hell of an offseason to get Kenny Golladay, Hunter Henry, get Jeremiah Wusu Koromoa in the draft. It definitely, and not to mention whatever else we do in the draft. It wouldn't just stop there at 19. That would be huge. It would be a huge offseason, but I don't think it would make us serious contenders, right away. But I do think it would give us a shot to be more competitive in the division with all that talent. But anyway, I digress. Thank you for the super chat. And oh, by the way, I did listen to some of your music. Thumbs up. My favorite song is Grandeur. I rock with that. So really appreciate you putting me on. And if y'all haven't heard, my man Damn Twin has music. He's an artist. Him and I'm assuming a twin, maybe a brother. I don't know. But he put me on. And if you've got any kind of streaming app, you can find their music and access. Just type in Damn Twin and you'll find his music. I have Tidal. I put it in. I didn't expect to find it. I did. I was surprised. I checked it out. It was good stuff. I appreciate it. Anyway, Creative Mind State, thank you for the super chat. And double up. Thank you for doubling up. Greatly appreciate you. Got another super chat. This one is from Chris SA210 Gaming. Chris writes, Washington should bring Juju Smith-Schuster and Deshaun Jackson back. Negative on both of those, for me at least. That's your opinion. That's fine. I'm good on both of those guys. I'm good on Deshaun. I mean, how many games did he play last year? I mean, Deshaun was a liability early in his career with health. What do you think he's going to be now as he's getting older? So, fortunately for us, the Eagles had to find that out the hard way. We didn't have to deal with that. So, I'm good on both of those guys for different reasons, obviously. Got a super chat from Mark McKnight. Thank you for the super chat, Mark. Greatly appreciate you. Got another one here from Kevin, the PRF, my man Kev. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Kev. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Dallas, best team on paper. So glad to pass that title off. Dak hasn't met our dynamic duo yet. He has not. I'd like him to meet them and meet them quite often. And yes, they are. And that's what I was getting at, is because you're the best on paper doesn't mean the paper that it doesn't hold any weight. It doesn't mean anything, just like the paper that it's on. All right. However, on paper, when I look at their roster, you'll be hard pressed to say that any other roster in this division is better than the one that Dallas is able to put on the field week in, week out. Period. End of discussion. But again, on paper doesn't mean a damn thing if the coaching staff is trash. And I don't love the Dallas coaching staff, especially their head coach. I think they've got some issues there, but I'm just telling you, on paper and with Dak Prescott at quarterback, and remember, he was there the first 3 games of the season when they were giving up damn near 40 a game, 40 a pop every week it felt like, and they were having to come from behind. He was playing. And they were getting their asses beat every week. But still, you look at their roster, you look at the talent that they have, you look at Dak Prescott and what he's capable of doing, You got to admit that Dallas, whether you would like to or not, that they've got the better roster right now. Got another super chat. This one is from Mark McKnight. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Mark. Greatly appreciate you. My man Mark McKnight writes, hello, Lou. Been a while. It has. Would you trade Brandon Sheriff in a 4th round pick for Sam Darnold and a 2nd round pick? And I think Curtis Samuel would kill it in Washington. No, I would not trade Brandon Sheriff in a 4th for Sam Darnold in a 2nd. Essentially, what you're saying is you're trading Brandon Sheriff straight up for Sam Darnold, and then the Jets, to overcompensate for the level of play that Brandon Sheriff has put in to this point of his career, is worth two rounds worth of draft selection. So essentially, we're giving them a 4th, and they're leveling us up 2 rounds to compensate us for Brandon Sheriff being an all-pro caliber player and Sam Darnold just being Sam Darnold. It's not enough. No, that's not a good trade. So no, I wouldn't do that at all. I wouldn't even trade, for Sam Darnold, because to me, Sheriff is the equivalent of a 1st round pick. That's how I view Brandon Sheriff. So essentially you're saying, would I trade a 1st and a 4th for Sam Darnold in a 2nd? And the answer is no. I don't think Sam Darnold's worth a 1st round pick. I've told you that already. So, he says, and I think Curtis Samuel, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names, would kill it in Washington. He might. He very well might kill it in Washington. I can't say that he wouldn't. He's very familiar with his surroundings, familiar with Terry McLaurin, familiar with Chase Young, familiar with Scott Turner, familiar with Ron Rivera. He's familiar with his surroundings, but I think we can do better than him. Not saying, just saying. Anyway, thank you for that super chat, Mark McKnight. Kevin the PRF, thank you for the super chat, tripling up. Greatly appreciate you, Kevin the PRF, who writes, FYI, Eric Berry had ongoing bone spur issues, leaving him permanently day to day. Yeah, I had no knowledge of that, so that's news to me. That would explain why he just disappeared seemingly out of thin air into the night. I could see Earl Thomas kind of having the same, here one day, gone the next kind of exit from the league. It'd be a little bit more alarming, though, because Earl had just signed a big deal in Baltimore. Then you had the off-the-field stuff. Then you had the on-the-field stuff, which ultimately got him cut. And then nothing. So we could see that with Eric Berry, with the cancer and some of the other things he had going on, we could see that maybe the end might be near a lot sooner than we thought. But with Earl, whoa. But, we'll see. But, yeah, I appreciate that. I had no idea with Eric Berry. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Fat American. My man Fat American writes, what about Sam Darnold? What about him? I've already told you many a times, I'm interested. I don't want to give up a 1st round pick for him, though. And I don't know what the Jets are asking for. If I'm the Jets, I'm holding out for a 1st round pick. And if I can't get it until draft day, so be it. But I'm not looking to move. They don't have to be in a rush to move Sam Darnold. They don't have to do anything with him right now. They won't be pushed to make a move on him until draft day or days. Could be the first day, could be day 2. He's a day 1 or 2 trade piece is Sam Darnold. I don't see how someone is trading, a day 3 selection for him. That doesn't make any sense for the Jets. At that point, you might as well just hold on to him. So for me, if I'm the Jets, I'm trying to extract a 1 out of somebody. If I'm a team interested in Sam Darnold, I'm not looking to give away anything earlier than a day 2 pick. So, and really, it's a second. Let's call a spade a spade. It's a second. It's not a third. But I'm not looking to give up a first for Sam Darnold. I'm looking to give up a second. So, I'm interested, as I've mentioned. I don't love Sam Darnold. I've made that abundantly clear, but I'm interested. Samuel Fairchild, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Samuel Fairchild writes, "Hey Louie, you're the best. Would you trade up for Notre Dame middle linebacker, or not middle linebacker? He's a weak side backer, but I know who you're talking about. You're talking about JOK, Jeremiah Owosu Koromoa. Says, okay to say to the 14th or 15th to get Titans free agent middle linebacker. So would you trade up to say 14 or 15 to get JOK? And then would you also get the Titans linebacker? Or get the Titans linebacker? Which one? So they don't play the same position. Jayon Brown is a middle linebacker. And, excuse me. You know what? And JOK is a weak side backer. Now, you could move guys around, and play around with their positions. But to me, Jeremiah Owosu Koromoa is strictly a will backer in this league. Now, Jayon Brown, you might have other aspirations of what to do with him. Because I look at Cole Holcomb and I say Cole could be a Mike, he could be a Will, or he could be a Sam. Cole Holcomb could play all three. Maybe they see the same thing for Jayon Brown. He can do all three things and they're really interested in him. But I told you, for me, personally, I'm not looking to trade up to get anybody unless I think that they are a guy. They're a guy that we've got to have, and he changes the game for us. And I told you there were really only two positions that I was interested in trading up in this draft for, and it could grow into three maybe, but for me it's only two positions. And that's assuming you don't get either of these in free agency, and that's quarterback and tight end. If Kyle Pitts somehow fell out of the top 10 and you felt like you could get him, then you go get him. That would be the guy. But linebacker, I think there are enough linebacker. I told you, I love this draft at linebacker, so I'm not really looking to trade when I feel like there's so much value in this draft at the linebacker position, depending on what you're looking to do. But this is the deepest linebacker draft we've seen in years. Years. So I'm not willing to trade up to get a guy unless he's a can't miss. Oh my God, if I insert him into this defense or offense, he's a game changer. He'll be unstoppable. And if that guy's Kyle Pitts or if that guy's Micah Parsons, knock yourself out. If that guy's JOK, knock yourself out. I don't have any problems with any of that. But for me, it would be quarterback or Kyle Pitts. That probably is my short list of the positions or players that I'd be willing to trade up for. But, shit changes. Free agency could change a lot of things. You strike out at a couple positions and all of a sudden you're a little desperate and you're really feeling this guy. Circumstances have changed. But going into free agency, those would be the two positions. And then seeing how we come out of free agency, I may alter that, obviously. Thank you for the super chat, Samuel Fairchild. Rob Yu, Thank you for the super chat. Your sixth of the night. Greatly appreciate you. My man Rob U writes, would Desmond King be a nice addition to the DBs? Yes. Yes, he would. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. The Blocker. Thank you for the super chat. And as always, thank you for your service. The Blocker writes, sup, Lou? Cam Curl has made Collins nearly irrelevant to me. Can Jeremy Reeves be a solid starter if given the chance? I would love an upgrade at free safety, but the main need has to be middle linebacker in draft or in free agency. I like Jeremy Reeves, but you know who I like even more than Jeremy Reeves? The guy that was playing before him. You know, it's funny. Everybody wants to talk about Jeremy Reeves. And Jeremy Reeves played well when he got an opportunity. There were some games in there where he struggled. But I was madly in love with Shays. Okay? And I thought Jeremy Reeves came in and showed well and made me feel really comfortable that if we got to go deep into the bag at safety, we're okay. We're okay. And Ron said, I don't need to go get Eric Reed. I'll bring him on to the practice squad, but Reed didn't want to do that. But he said, I don't feel the need to have to do that because Jeremy Reeves, he has shown us that he deserves an opportunity. So we're going to give him that opportunity. And I thought he took advantage of that opportunity. But my guy is DeShazer Everett. Shays is my guy. So for me, Shays is the guy that I'm saying, hey, if he can stay healthy, and I don't know if he can or not. But I'm saying if Shays can stay healthy, that's the guy I want in there. DeShazer Everett is the guy I want in there. But to answer your question, could Reeves be a solid starter? Maybe. Small sample size we saw at the end of the season. He had his ups and his downs. He had his games where you're like, man, Jeremy Reeves was terrible today. And then you had your games where you're like, hey, man, Jeremy Reeves, not that damn bad. Not bad at all. I'm more of a DeShazer Everett fan myself. So I'd like to see him get healthy, come back, and have an opportunity. And I agree. I don't think a major upgrade at free safety is necessary. The team could disagree vehemently. And we'll find out. Our name has been rumored to Anthony Harris, the safety from Minnesota. If they do that, then that tells you all you need to know about what they feel about the safety position. I don't. Ron said at his presser that the injury to Landon Collins complicates things a bit at safety because they need to know what he's going to look like. But at the same time, if he's healthy, I think they feel good about safety. Would they like to upgrade it? Sure. But is it a necessity? No. Not when you got money to spend elsewhere. So, middle linebacker should be a priority, and I think that should be a priority in the draft. I agree with you. Not free agency. I don't think there's enough out there in free agency to make you feel comfortable spending the kind of money at that position. So, let's see if there are any more super chats. Got one here from Red Wings 01. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Red Wings 01, who writes, mock draft. Give our extra third and a seventh rounders. So give extra third and seventh rounder to, this year and next year's first rounder to trade up for a quarterback and use the 19th pick for a wide receiver or an inside linebacker. So, first of all, the only way that you get something like that done is if it's a back end of the first round pick. So, if you're trading up for a quarterback, when you say trade up, that means you're using your pick this year to move up. That's what you can't select a player at 19 and still get a quarterback. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. If you want a quarterback and you want to trade up, so you want one of the top 4 guys, maybe 5, if you're interested in Mac Jones and you think you got to move from 19 to 14 to get him, you got to give up your first round pick this year. You don't get to select Mac Jones and still keep your number 19 overall. That's not how it works. In order to get that quarterback, you have to give up 19. Now, the only way you get to make a selection at 19 is if you say Mac Jones is the guy you want. But you didn't love him at 19. But you love him at 29 and he's still there. Then that package that you just referred to, 3rd this year, 7th, and a 1st the next year, then that's something that comes into play. Yeah, then you could do that. And even then, you wouldn't want to do that. I mean, we gave up 2 seconds to come up and get Montez Sweat at 25. Why would you give up a 3, a 7, and a 1 to get to 28 to get a quarterback? When all it took was 2 2s to get Montez Sweat at 25 or 26, wherever it was. So again, how this works is if you want a quarterback and you want to trade up, as you mentioned, you have to give up your pick to trade up. Nobody's going to allow you to come up and take their first rounder this year without a first rounder this year in return. You don't get to take their first rounder and say, hey, I got you next year on a first rounder. That's not how this works. No, I want your first rounder this year and I might want your first rounder next year. That's how it works. So you don't get to keep the 19th pick in your scenario. Now, in the scenario that I proposed, and that's a hypothetical, you would have to come back into the first round. That's how you would select 19th. And then Mac Jones is still there at 28, 29. And you're like, whoa, didn't expect him to still be here. Let's go back and get him. But even still, you wouldn't have to give up a 3, a 7, and a 1 to do that. So thank you for the super chat. Red Wings number 1. Got another super chat. This one is from DCJ. Thank you for the super chat, DCJ. Greatly appreciate you. My man DCJ writes, yo, Lou, long time, bro. It has been. I think it's been since the season ended, it feels like. Stay blessed. Likewise. I say drive slow this offseason like last year. Maybe a wide receiver and a quarterback and a middle linebacker. It's funny you say drive slow, but then you name 3 major positions. He says, but don't OD on spending, stick with the draft. I understand where you're coming from, though. I totally get it. And I think to some degree, Ron is going to kind of put a mixture of those things together. I think they're going to be a lot more aggressive than they were last offseason, but not like crazy. Like some people, their shopping list consists of like 3 top 10 items. Like, nah, that's not how this works. You want that kind of stuff, you looking to spend some bread. That's not how my list looks at all. But trust me, I want some stuff. I got some shit on my list. That's for damn sure. But I like you think that you don't need to go crazy with the shopping list. And I don't think Ron is going to go crazy either. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Fat American. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, you wouldn't rather just roll with Heine and Allen? It just all depends. Again, I'm with Ron on this. If I can upgrade, I want an upgrade, okay? I don't want to just roll with Heine and Allen. No, I don't want to do that, okay? But if we had to do that, I wouldn't be distraught because we're rolling the camp. Like, again, I always bring up John Beck and Rex Grossman when we were led to believe that these guys were going to be able to give us a chance at the quarterback position. And we were supposed to get excited about John Beck. And I'm not going to lie to you. Mike Shanahan got me excited about John Beck. I remember watching those preseason games with a level of excitement that I will say has been unmatched in the preseason for me the last decade. I'm not happy to admit that. I'm actually ashamed to admit that. And I remember I had a song for him when he would play in the preseason. He would make a play. I said, oh, go Johnny. Johnny be good tonight. Yeah. Yeah. Go Johnny. Johnny be good. I thought John Beck was going to be good. I was wrong. And I'll admit that. I told you when I'm wrong, I'll be the first to tell you I was wrong. When I'm right, damn it, you're going to know. Because I'm going to tell you I was right. So, I don't want to go down that road again. I don't think these two, again, we didn't know John Beck, Adam from Eve, when we got him. So, we didn't have a sample size to go off of. We just went off of the word of Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan. We've seen both of these guys in action in this offense on this team. So we kind of know at least a little as to what we're getting ourselves into. Again, small sample size. Hard to extrapolate a full 16, 17 game slate out of one start for Heineke and like 3 for Kyle Allen. It's hard to extrapolate that out of the small sample size that we have. That said, you're not in the dark. You kind of know what you're getting yourself into. But I would like another guy in there, whether it be a young guy, that I can say at least if these two guys aren't it, got a young guy warming up in the bullpen, and at moment's notice, I can look to the bullpen and say, hey, give me the young fella, and we can move forward with that. Or you give me the veteran, and I can say, hey, get in there, compete with these dudes and see if you can't beat them out for the job. What I don't want to have happen is what happened last year. And it's very feasible that it could happen because you're dealing with guys that have been injury prone throughout their careers. I don't want Heineke to go down, Allen to go down, and then we're staring at Steven Montez in the face. Then the season becomes unwatchable. I don't want that. You don't want that. So, at least if there's a Marcus Mariota, at least if there's a Sam Darnold, and that guy doesn't work, then there's a Allen and then there's a Heineke. If all of those guys aren't able to play, then hell, you probably don't deserve to go anywhere anyway. If all those guys get injured or they all stink, you probably don't deserve to go anywhere anyway. That was where we were last year. And Alex happened to save the day. If there was no Alex Smith, God forbid we had to rely on Dwayne for all of those games, we would have been in dead last in the division last season. So, Allen and Heineke are cool. And I would love to see Heineke get an opportunity. But even he said it himself when he got his contract. And he had a little media scrum with the press. He said, one of the things I got to work on this offseason is getting stronger, getting my body up to be able to deal with the rigors of the NFL. I've played in 2 games. I've started 2 games in the NFL. I got hurt in both of them. That's not a good thing. That's not a good percentage. 2 starts, 2 injuries. That's scary. Kyle Allen is coming off of a broken ankle. That's scary to say, hey, we're going to just roll with those 2 dudes. So, something has to be done. A young guy, veteran, young guy with upside, something's got to be done. Got another super chat. This next one is from Red Wings 01. Thank you for tripling up Red Wings 01, who writes, could Troy Atki be a good cornerback? Nah, probably not. I mean, at this point, if he could play corner, somebody would have probably discovered that already. took Jay Gruden all of maybe 3-4 practices to realize, hey, Quentin Dunbar is a gunner and a receiver. Hey, let's move his ass to cornerback. If Atki could play corner, he probably would have been playing corner already. With his speed, I'm pretty sure coaches in college, maybe even to the NFL to a lesser degree, they probably already tried that. And they said, nah, we're good. You know, I don't think there's any value in him switching positions at this point. He is what he is. So, the best you probably get out of him is a gunner in the league. And with his speed, he's proven that he's a hell of a gunner. But, nah, I don't think you're switching any positions with Troy Apke at this point. Let's see. Got another super chat. This one is from Clumsy Jedi 26. Thank you for the super chat, Clumsy Jedi 26, who writes, I'll take Mac at 19. Gotta get him when we can. You know, it's crazy because I went into this process assuming that he'd definitely be there at 19. No way Mac Jones is gone before then, right? And I get it. You know the mantra, you know the motto, you know what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. You know the rules to the game to play. However, you hear Peter King, you hear other people start talking about Mac Jones, and I'm not saying, and this is a unique offseason, and so in an offseason where you're not getting the exposure that you normally get to these players, you're not getting the combine, you're not getting the individual workouts. The Senior Bowl is really the best exposure that these evaluators have had with any players in this draft. And keep in mind that the Senior Bowl is exactly that. It's for seniors and upperclassmen that qualify. It's not for the redshirt sophomore. A lot of times you're not going to see the redshirt junior there or the true junior at the Senior Bowl. So a guy like Mac Jones had an opportunity, had the stage pretty much all to himself because none of these quarterbacks are seniors. All of these guys are underclassmen. Lawrence and Fields and Wilson and Lance. None of these guys are seniors. So for all intents and purposes, he had the stage to himself. And he took advantage of that. And he may have wowed some teams, some evaluators, and he may have moved himself up a bit. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying. I still think he's going to be there at 19, personally. But I've said this for years, and it's rung true. No position like the quarterback position gets pushed up in the draft. We see more quarterbacks get pushed up than any other position in the draft over the years. And so a guy that you thought was a second-round pick can get pushed into the first. A guy that you thought was a back end of the first get pushed up into the mid portion of this first round. A guy that you thought was a mid-first round gets pushed up into the top 10. We see it all the time. And Mac Jones might not be any different. But we'll see what happens. Got another super chat. This one is from DCJ. Thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, DCJ. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, not sold on Sam. Might as well get new blood, Mac Jones. Just saying. Yeah, I feel you. I'm not big on Sam Darnold either, but I also take into consideration that he was in a dysfunctional organization, similar to here. When people dismiss players that didn't play well here and just chalk it up to playing for a dysfunctional organization, I kind of am doing the same thing to the Jets that people do to us all the time. Preston Smith. Oh, he was in a dysfunctional organization. That guy can play. Green Bay gives him a deal. He goes out and gets 13 and a half sacks. Shit happens all the time. Jamison Crowder, he can play. Oh, don't worry about all the punts he dropped that last year. He can play. Jets give him a deal. He plays well for the Jets. We see it all the time. People dismiss what happens here, whether it be with coaches or it be with players, because they just chalk it up to a dysfunctional organization seeping into this player's talent or this coach's ability to coach. And they chalk it up to toxicity in the organization. I'm doing the same thing with Sam Darnold. I didn't love him coming out of SC, but I'm like, he's got talent, and that was a mess. Adam Gase was a mess. The Jets organization was a mess. Ownership was a mess. Maybe he'll have better opportunity elsewhere with a fresh start, clean slate. That's all I'm saying. But I understand if you're not sold on Sam Darnold. I get it. Totally get it. All right. So that was the last super chat. So what I want to do real quick is I want to talk about Ron Rivera's presser yesterday. Talk about, I've already kind of hinted at a few things that was said that I thought was pertinent, but I want to go through a few items that I thought was interesting, that I thought were interesting from Ron yesterday. The first thing I want to talk about is something that is off the beaten path. I want to get this out of the way because I'll forget very quickly. I thought the reporters actually did a pretty good job of asking about multiple things, kind of covering all bases. And one of the bases that they covered was Ruben Foster. I was surprised that they asked about him. I'm surprised somebody didn't ask about Bryce Love, but they definitely asked. And I think it was more so because Ruben Foster, and it was J.P. Finley that asked about Ruben Foster. And he said, does his contract toll because he was on IR? And JP knows better than that. Just because you're on IR, it doesn't mean that you get an extra year, you know. You're on IR, that year happens, and now he's a free agent. So you know, Ruben Foster, the fifth year option wasn't picked up by Washington. So this was his last year. And he didn't play. He was on IR. Okay, he's still a free agent. Nobody's talking about him. Ron wasn't really talking about him, but Ron said, Ruben's fine, you know, and he didn't sound enthused like they're dying to re-sign Ruben Foster. But he said Ruben's fine, you know, he's healthy, so we'll see what happens. That's kind of what he said. But Ruben's a free agent. That's the biggest takeaway from that statement, is that, yeah, he's a free agent. And we've heard nothing about Ruben Foster. So I'm going to err on the side of they're not re-signing Ruben Foster right now. I could be wrong. Again, I don't think he's going to generate any interest on the free agent market. So if they want Ruben Foster back, they don't have to rush. You know, they don't have to make sure that they lock him up before he's exposed to the rest of the league. But if somebody's out there and they say, look, Ruben Foster's name hasn't been in the news in 2 years, and we know he's talented, he was a former first-round pick, we don't mind kicking the tires, somebody might kick the tires. I figure, look, we took the risk when it wasn't cool to have Ruben Foster on the roster. We took the risk then, and it wasn't a smart thing to do then when Bruce Allen did it, but we did it. We took the lumps, we took the ridicule from everybody, and my thing is, you did all of that. Yeah, he got hurt. You couldn't have forecast that, but it happened. You couldn't have foreshadowed that he was going to get injured and you weren't going to get anything for him, but it happened. What I'm saying is, you took all of those lumps, and Ron has nothing to do with that. He wasn't here when they decided to sign Ruben Foster, when everybody else let him clear through waivers. He didn't have anything to do with that. But you inherited him. He was here. The organization already took the lumps. Why not find out if this guy has anything left? Why not find out if this guy can help you? It's a position of need. It's not going to cost you a ton. I don't see why you couldn't do that. What it would hurt. But again, when you're building a culture, and Ron's big on having the right guys in the locker room, maybe he doesn't feel like Ruben Foster's a great fit for this culture. I don't know. I just know that he didn't sound like a guy that was all too enthused about Ruben Foster. So, but he's healthy and he's a free agent. So, got a super chat. This is from my man, Ricky L. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Ricky L., who says, yo, my main man, check your DMs on Twitter when you can. Hashtag my bro. Hashtag Lab Room Fam. I'm going to check. All right. Okay. I'm going to hit you up. Good to see you, man. Good to hear from you, bro. And hope that 2021 provides you and your family with some blessings, bro. I really do. So that was the first thing I wanted to bring up. And thanks again for that super chat, Ricky L. Really appreciate you. Then another thing he brought up was the Alex Smith situation. I just want to get all the ancillary stuff out the way before we get to the nitty gritty. He talked about the Alex Smith situation. He said, look, I didn't disagree with anything Alex said. What did we say on this show? What did I say? What did a lot of you say? What did I say in particular, though? I said, I didn't disagree with anything Alex said. I didn't feel Alex was being disrespectful or anything of the sort. I just felt like it was unnecessary to be said if you were coming back to the team. That felt like the words of someone that was scorned. Alex felt like, I did all of this to come back. I helped you make the playoffs. And this is the thanks I get. You guys aren't going to give me a chance to lead this team. Screw you. And that's what that GQ article felt like. The tone of it. Not necessarily the words in it. Because everything that Alex said, he had a right to feel that way. And everything that Alex said, Ron said, and the organization said, they had a right to feel that way. And Ron said, look, there was no roadmap to deal with that. I didn't know how to navigate that. I didn't want to be the guy that put him back on the field and had him get, and he got hurt again. I didn't want to be responsible. I didn't want to be that guy. I was scared to death to put him back on the field. But we did it. It worked out. And, I appreciate him. But he said, I didn't have a problem. I didn't have a problem with the GQ article either. But again, if he was coming back, that article never happens. It only happened because Alex was already told he was going to be released. And he was pissed, and he felt like venting, and that's what he did. So, let me get, Ron got that out of the way. Then, he talked about the quarterback position. And he said, look, I'm not desperate. I just need you guys to understand this. We're actively looking. We're pursuing all avenues. That's not any different than what Ron told us when they hired the two Martys, Martin Mayhew and Marty Herney. It's the same exact thing he said. Hey, we gonna turn over every stone. We gonna look down every avenue. Okay? We're gonna follow every lead. It's the same thing he's been saying all offseason. Ron wants to upgrade the quarterback position, and he should. Once again, he was asked about Cam Newton. And he said, I can't talk about him. And he left it at that. Those kinds of comments make me nervous because I know there's an affinity for Cam Newton, but I don't think he's coming here. I don't. I'm sticking steadfast to that. Nothing Ron has said nor done gives me the indication nor the vibes that Cam Newton is going to be here. But I can tell you this, Ron wants something done at the quarterback position. And I feel like if Cam's still available, which I think he will be, okay, after the draft, and Washington didn't come away with a young quarterback, and Washington didn't get anything via trade in the draft, or they didn't get anybody via free agency during this period, and Cam's still available, I could see then and only then Cam Newton being an option in Washington. But Ron saying he's not desperate, music to my ears, because what that says to me is, look, we swung the fences for Matthew Stafford. We swung and we missed. It happens. There's some other opportunities out there. I think they're going to explore Marcus Mariota. I think they're going to explore Sam Darnold. They're not tapped out. They're not maxed out. There are other opportunities still out there. But if those things go awry, or they decide to go in a different direction, and then they go to the draft and things kind of fall apart there, something is going to be done. I'm just telling you this. We're not going to camp with Taylor Heineke and Kyle Allen duking it out as the only two viable options at the quarterback position. Without a rookie on the roster, that is. Something is going to be done. I can assure you we're not going to camp with the same cast of characters at quarterback that we did last year, minus Alex Smith and Dwayne Haskins. We're not going to camp with just those two guys and Steven Montez. So I'm hearing, Ron, something's going to happen. That's what I'm hearing, is we're going to do something. I don't know what. He's like, I don't have answers for you right now, but they're working. Something's going to be done. He talked about Sheriff in the deal. He said, look, that's on me. I wanted him here. I view Brandon as, one, a great player, two, a great guy in the locker room. He's the kind of guy we want here in Washington. And he said, what kind of a message does it send if a guy like Brandon isn't here? And what have I been saying? Like, this is much deeper than just Brandon's not worth $18 million. It's about sending a message to the guys in the locker room that if you do it the right way, you do what we ask you to do, and you are a part of the solution, not the problem, then you need to be paid and you need to be rewarded here. And you're not going to be able to do that with everybody. And it's a business, and the players understand that. But when it comes to guys the caliber of a Brandon Sheriff, you have to set an example. And the example can't be, we're going to let him walk. The example has to be, this guy's an all-pro. This guy's playing through injuries. This guy's a team captain. This guy does it the right way. He's got to stay here. That's got to be what the message is to the rest of the guys in the locker room, that if I bust my ass for this organization, if I bust my ass for this coaching staff, if I do everything they ask me to do, if I play through injuries, I too can be rewarded here in Washington. And Ron pretty much said, that's why I franchised him. I don't want him to go. I don't want the other guys in the locker room. And again, that's a small piece of the puzzle. It's not that he doesn't want the other guys in the locker room to see Brandon Sheriff getting paid elsewhere. That's not the only reason he's here. He's an all-pro, okay? And he's the best offensive lineman we have. He's an ass kicker. Oh, by the way. So, it makes sense. I get it. They still have time to work out a long-term deal. And Ron said, we want to work out a long-term deal with Brandon. We don't want him playing under a second consecutive franchise tag. We don't want $18 million tied up into one player. That's not ideal. We're hoping to get a long-term deal done, but this just buys us more time. Understood. He talked about this direction that we're going in and not mortgaging the future to try to win now and living in the present. People can sometimes be captivated by push all your chips into the middle of the table now because you've got momentum. And I've talked about there's a fine balance. And I referenced this earlier in tonight's show. I'm going to reference it again because I think this is a massive offseason. The reason I think it's such a big offseason is because you do have some momentum. Because Daniel Snyder is tied up in legalities and not focused on being meddlesome. And you do have, right now, this coach-centric approach at maybe its highest levels. Maybe it gets even higher. And if Ron wins and wins big, he'll have all the control he could ever ask for. But if they lose next year, you might get meddlesome Dan back. Okay? Dan may want more input. Who knows? We may not see the coach-centric approach get any higher than what it is now. He was allowed to get rid of Dwayne Haskins, which was Daniel Snyder's draft pick. He was allowed to move on from Kyle Smith and hire Marty Herney and Martin Mayhew. There are no ties. And, I talked about Ron, not necessarily meshing well with Kyle Smith. And maybe there was a little bit of, jealousy as to some of the credit that was being dished out last year for some of the free agent moves and the draft picks and things of that nature. I think it was more than that, though. I think there was a little bit of that. But I think there's a bigger point to be made, and there's nobody with an allegiance to Dan left in the organization. Everybody that's here in this organization is here because of Ron. Their allegiance doesn't lie with Daniel Snyder. It lies with Ron Rivera. So in other words, there's nobody to stab him in his back. If he's got a knife or a dagger in his back, it's from Daniel Snyder. It's not from anybody else. Because everybody else in the organization right now pretty much owes their job to Ron Rivera. And you couldn't say that with Kyle Smith left in the organization. Because Kyle could be trying to undercut Ron so that he could kind of put a wedge in between Dan and Ron so that he could have control. Because people do that. And I'm not saying that Kyle Smith was going to do that, but people do that. Bruce Allen did it. And if you get close enough to the owner and he starts hearing you and you're in his ear all the time and you're able to convince him that this guy's the problem, get rid of him and let me pick the next coach, now you got a problem. To eliminate that, he removed the one guy that, hey, you won't hear before I made all my money, man. I don't know if I can trust you. I know all the rest of these dudes. They was with me when I was broke. So I know I can trust them. You, though, you just got here. I don't know you like that. So he had to remove that one guy from the situation. I'm not mad at him for that. But all of that kind of comes together to prove the overarching theme, which is Ron's in control, total control right now. And that's why this offseason is so big. And so I think he feels that, but he's doing that same thing he did in week 17. You know, the thing where he says, hey, we don't have any pressure on us. It's all house money. We don't have any pressure on us. We just need to go out and just play. Whether we win or not, it's a success already. This season has gone way better than we could have ever imagined. Bullshit, Ron. If we would have lost in week 17, you could have tried to sell that to the players. Everybody would have been disappointed because you needed to win the division. It was gift wrapped for you after you beat the Steelers and you beat the 49ers and everybody in the division was losing games and you were up and the Giants had the injury to Daniel Jones. The division was gift wrapped when the Eagles took Wentz out of the lineup and they were struggling. It was gift wrapped for you. And for you to lose to the Panthers and have the Dwayne saga, for you to then have an opportunity against a lifeless Eagles team and you not get it done, that season would have ended with a big thud and a dud. And so he tried to sell everybody on, oh, no, you didn't have to win. We playing with house money. But that was bullshit. And what he's doing right now is he's saying, hey, we don't have to be over-aggressive to mortgage the future. We know that there's some things that we need to do, but I don't think we have to be desperate. And there is some validity to that. There's definitely validity to that. You don't have to be out here desperate in these streets after these free agents. But there is a sense of desperation that there are a few guys that you should be targeting, or positions specifically that you should be targeting, and you need to be aggressive. And I get the sense that he understands that, and I think they are going to be aggressive. And the thing that I like about Ron, that I feel like, and we're going to find out this year, remember, it's a new triumvirate. We're going to find out with these new guys, Marty Hurney and Martin Mayhew, if they've got the same mentality as Ron had last year. Because remember, last year, Ron, they wanted very badly Amari Cooper. They went all in. They didn't get him. But they didn't go out and spend frivolously on another guy just because they missed out on Amari Cooper. They was like, well, shit, we didn't get Amari Cooper. Back to the drawing board. They wanted Austin Hooper, but they weren't going to get into a bidding war for his ass. Hey, we like you, won't like you that goddamn much. So if Cleveland wants to pay you $11 million, pretty much, 10 and a half a year, go get your money, bruh. But they didn't go out and they didn't get desperate and pay a whole bunch of money to this next guy. They said, all right, we'll just go get Logan Thomas. No worries. We cool. I think that you're going to see some guys out here in free agency that they really want, and they're going to go after them aggressively. And if they get them, cool. But I don't know if they're willing to get into a bidding war, and that's a good thing. You should be happy to know that they probably aren't going to get into a bidding war with any teams. And we don't need to do that. So I think there's a lot that Ron was saying in that presser. I think he saw there are some things you could take. But I'm really encouraged by what Ron said, and I like where we sit from a cap standpoint. I know a lot of you don't love that Brandon Sheriff got franchise tagged, but at the end of the day, they still got time to work out a long-term deal. That's not set in stone. So anyway, got a couple super chats. Want to take care of these real quick. This super chat is from DCJ. Thank you for the super chat and tripling up. DCJ, greatly appreciate you. Who writes, side note, for RM football for a second. Read your Bible, repent, get saved, repent again. Trust Jesus. He will change and fix all of our lives and much more. Indeed. Hopefully you guys out there know your Savior. I can't speak for any of you out there, but if you don't, now's the time. That might be a message for you. Thank you for the super chat, DCJ. Got another one here from DCJ, 4 for the night. Greatly appreciate you, who writes, not asking to you to read out loud, just wanted to share. Already did read it out loud, and that's not a problem. I appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, DCJ. So, with that said, now I want to get to the shits. I talked about this being a big night. We're going to talk about some real stuff. So we're going to get into that right now. Before we do that, I want to urge any of you out there that haven't already done so to please subscribe to the Louie T Network. All right, turn on that notification bell if you haven't already done so. But more importantly, subscribe if you haven't done so. And hit the like button. If you're watching this, 127 likes. Love the fact that I didn't have to beg you guys, and I generally don't have to when I'm doing this particular show to get over 100. But I'm at 127. If there's over 420 of you out there, I'd like to get this thing up over 200 if I can. So if you're out there, you're watching, you haven't hit the like button, please, please, please hit the like button. Greatly appreciate you guys. But that said, let's get to my free agency wish list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how I would approach free agency. And I want you guys to understand that this isn't what I think the team is going to do. This is what I would do if I had a chance. A lot of times you guys say, hey, Louie T, put your GM cap on for a second. If you were in this position, what would you do? Well, that's what I'm doing here. We've talked all offseason about free agency and what we should or shouldn't do, and it's led us to this moment, and I'm going to talk about the reals. I'm going to talk about why each move should or shouldn't be done and how you need to be thinking. And again, I'm not asking you to agree with what I'm saying. I just want you to listen to what I'm saying, okay? So here we go. So I've got a free agency plan that I would carry out if I were Washington, and it consists of 6 items, okay? 6 things that I would do, all right? And this is how it would go. So the first thing that I would do, all right, is I would get a long-term deal done with Brandon Sheriff. All right. There are ramifications to him playing on the franchise tag for a second consecutive year. On one hand, you could say, well, it's $18 million. It'll come off the books next year. So it's like an infusion of cap dollars next season. That's not the point. You're being short-sighted if you see it that way. You've already invested $14.5 million on a one-year contract last year. You're doing it again this year, this time for $18 million. Keep in mind, he's a guard. You shouldn't be spending that kind of money in one season. Now, if he's getting it over the life of his deal and it's on average, $17 million, so be it. But you can play around with the numbers. You can make it fit under the cap and make it make sense. It can be bonuses. It can be different ways that money is distributed to him. $18 million all at once it's not crippling because we've got it. We're good for it. But just because you have it doesn't mean you spend it. That's not smart business. The reason rich people stay rich and the wealthy stay wealthy is because they don't spend it because they got it. That's how you end up on broke. That's how athletes end up broke. That's how lotto winners end up broke. They spend it because they got it. And they don't think about the ramifications of down the road. You want to lock Brandon Sheriff up so that A, you're keeping one of your best players on your roster for the foreseeable future. And B, you also want to make sure that the financial aspect of this is not only going to impact you now in a better way because you will bring that cap number down and it'll allow you to reallocate assets to different places this year if you so choose, or take that money, roll it over to next year and be able to use it because, again, other contracts are coming down the pipeline. So you have to keep that in mind. Brandon Sheriff would be the first thing that I would take care of this offseason. You franchised him already. Get the long-term deal done sooner rather than later. The next thing that I would do if I were Washington is I would re-sign Ronald Darby. Somebody made a great point earlier tonight, and they said, I don't want any holes. And I think it was King of the North, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, I don't want any holes. I don't want to create a hole on this roster. If we already have a solution, why do we need to then get a shovel and create a hole? You got a chance to bury a hole, potentially, because there's a hole now because Darby isn't guaranteed to come back. Before I finish talking about Ronald Darby, let me set the table for you on how I approach things. Number one, I want things done my way. I'm not looking for alternative solutions unless I have to. If this is my number one guy, I'm going to try to do everything that I can to get the guy that I want. I want what I want. That's how I would run my organization. I want what I want. If I can't get what I want, then I'm not really looking to get the next best thing unless the next best thing is actually the next best thing. Because sometimes the next best thing is falling off a cliff. And you're still willing to grab. Like, we had this conversation last week where some of you were talking about all these options at quarterback. And I'm like, you guys are so thirsty for a quarterback, you're willing to try to talk yourself into Jacoby Brissett or Tyrod Taylor. Stop. That's not the next best thing. You don't get Matthew Stafford, so the next best thing is Jacoby Brissett. No. You just say, all right, I'm good. I'm just not going to do anything. Number two, always have a contingency plan. Always. Okay? The contingency plan may be we're just going to stand pat. That might be the contingency plan. But always have a contingency plan in place so that if the guy that you're targeting or something that you anticipated going this way doesn't go that way, you have another plan in place so that you're not scrambling, or as a wise man used to say, you're not shuffling your papers. I would re-sign Ronald Darby. That is the second thing I would do this offseason. Ronald Darby was phenomenal for us last year. He didn't have an interception, but I can tell you something else. He didn't have many bad games. I could only think of 2 games where Ronald Darby semi-struggled. He was our most consistent corner last season. Here's the contingency plan for Ronald Darby in the event that he can't be re-signed. Because trust me, there are other teams eyeballing our stuff. And Darby may not be back. You don't get Darby re-signed before the start of free agency, he might be gone. There's a realistic possibility Ronald Darby's gone. In the event that that happens, my 3 options, I've got 3 contingency plans set up because you got to do something at corner. You can't go into next season or even into the draft. I think it's fool's gold to go into the draft looking for a young corner. I think it's fool's gold. And there may be some, I haven't gotten to the cornerback position. There may be some studs in this draft. And that's cool. But I'd much rather you draft one of those dudes already knowing, hey, I got 2 guys I'm comfortable starting. And if this young guy beats out one of those guys, then cool, so be it. We could always take, Kendall Fuller and move him to safety. Contingency plan number 1. Sign J.C. Jackson. He's 26 years old. I've talked about him already. I don't think New England's going to allow him to hit the streets. He's a restricted free agent. I think New England's going to hold on to him. Haven't heard them tender him at all. So I, right now, would have my sights set on J.C. Jackson. They don't put a tender on him. You can wrestle him away from New England. They have the right of first refusal. If they see the deal, they want to match it, they can. If they don't, you got yourself another young corner to replace the one you just lost. In the event that New England says, hey, back off, bad back, he's ours, contingency plan number 2 for Ronald Darby departing is Darius Williams. He's 28 years old. Former Los Angeles Rams corner, impressed the hell out of me in 2020. Not going to cost you nearly as much as it is going to cost to get Darby or some of the other upper echelon corners that will be available, like a Shaq Griffin in free agency. I like Darius Williams. He's young and he can run, and I think he would fit this defense. And then number 3 would be William Jackson III. 29 years old, a little bit older than I would like him to be, but talented. He can run, and once again, not going to cost you as much as it's going to cost to get Darby back, not going to cost as much as it would to get Darius Williams. He's going to be a lot less, I believe. So, those are your options. I want Ronald Darby back. Okay? You can't get him back. Contingency plans then are in place. Option number 3. For me, move 3. After you take care of home, that's the first thing you got to do is take care of home. If you want to re-sign John Allen to an extension, now's the time to do it. But after you take care of Sheriff and Ronald Darby, which are the 2 biggest free agents that we have, to me, the first guy I would go after in free agency isn't a wide receiver. It's Hunter Henry. If you recall, if you listened to my podcast on Wednesday, I gave you my top 23 free agents in the 2021 free agency class, and Hunter Henry was number 3 on the list. Somebody referenced going out and getting one A-plus guy. I think it was my man King of the North again. And he said, I'll go out and get one A-plus guy, and then I'm going to just sit and chill, let the market settle, and then I'll go back in for seconds. That's my A-plus guy right there. okay? I'm going after Hunter Henry, and I know it's going to cost me some money. I don't care. I'm willing to spend for a 26-year-old complete tight end in a league where complete tight ends are becoming dinosaurs. He's a red zone threat. He can block in the run game. He's a chain mover on third downs. He's an athlete. He can run. He can stretch the field vertically. And now you get a 1-2 punch with Hunter Henry and Logan Thomas. Now there is no necessity in the draft to get a tight end, even though I'd still draft one. I wouldn't stop there. I'd draft one. But Hunter Henry at 26 years old is going into the prime of his career. I want him. And I think they wanted him last year. And they would have done the same thing they did for Amari Cooper last year. They would have done it for Hunter Henry, but the Chargers slapped the franchise tag on him. He's available this year. I think they're willing to spend to get Hunter Henry. I think he's going to be in Washington this offseason. I think that's a guy that Ron Rivera wants. I think Scott Turner is looking for an upgrade at the tight end position, and they need a guy that can block in the run game. They can get all of that in one body in Hunter Henry. That's the guy that I would go after if I'm Washington. My contingency plan in the event that Hunter Henry chooses to go elsewhere or somebody offers him more than Washington is willing to offer him, which I doubt. My contingency plan is Jonnu Smith. He's also 26 years old. Former Tennessee Titans tight end. He's a good athlete. He's not as consistent catching the football, not as consistent a run blocker as Hunter Henry, but he's good. And he's an upgrade over anything that we've had outside of Logan Thomas. He's not Hunter Henry. That's for damn sure. But he's not terrible. And he's better than average. He's young, he's athletic, and he's willing to block. And I think those are all workable traits that you get excited about at the tight end position. And much like I said with Hunter Henry, I wouldn't stop there. I would still draft a young guy. But Hunter Henry is my first big free agent signing if I'm Washington. To hell with wide receiver. There are plenty of those guys available. I'm not looking to get into an arms race for Kenny Golladay or any of these other guys available, Will Fuller, none of those dudes. Curtis Samuel, he could take his ass to the Giants. That's where I think he's ultimately going to end up. Curtis Samuel, everyone is drawing this direct correlation to Washington because of his history. And I'm saying the same thing that happened to us last year is going to happen to us this year, which was last year we all assumed James Bradbury was in Carolina with Ron Rivera. Ron was doing his Super Bowl rounds, if you remember last year. And he's like, yeah, James Bradbury is a really intriguing player. I can't talk about him. He's a free agent, but I really love me some James Bradbury. And James Bradbury was making his Super Bowl rounds. And he said, hey, love me some Ron Rivera. My favorite coach I've ever played for. That didn't stop him from going to New York and getting his money. Because Dave Gettleman was the guy that drafted him. Same thing with Curtis Samuel. Dave Gettleman was the guy that drafted him. And I think he's going to find his way to New York, not Washington. And why do I feel that confident about Curtis Samuel going elsewhere or not going after Kenny Golladay, not going after Will Fuller, who I really like, is because my next move would be to go and get Corey Davis, wide receiver, formerly of the Tennessee Titans. Here's why you got to think about what you're going to do with receiver. This is what a lot of you aren't thinking about. A lot of you are just thinking about, we need to go get a beast. We need to go get a number one wide receiver to pair with Terry. That's cool. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. I'm about to drop this gem on your damn melon because a lot of y'all not thinking about the ramifications of going out and signing Will Fuller to a 3-year, $48 million deal. You're not thinking about the ramifications of signing Will Fuller to a 4-year, $64 million deal. You're not thinking about the ramifications of signing Kenny Golladay to a 5-year, $90 million deal. You're not thinking about that. Here's why you should be. What does Terry think when he looks up and he sees the guy across from him making $16 million a year? What do you think Terry's thinking when it's his turn to get broken off? You think Terry's like, well, I know that this guy is a true number one, so I'm gonna take less than that guy. Hell no. Terry's like, this is my team. I was here first. You gonna pay this dude $18 million per year. I want 20. You got to establish a pecking order in your locker room. You got to establish a pay scale in your locker room. If you go out and you pay Kenny Golladay $17 million per year, if I'm Terry, I want 18. He ain't getting paid more than me. I was here first. I was balling before he got here. I don't care what he did before he got here. This is my team. And if he's eating here, part of the reason he's eating here is because of my presence. So instead of you going and getting into a bidding war for Golladay or Will Fuller or Juju Smith-Schuster, those guys are going to cost you $15, $16, $17 million per year. Nah, you go down to the next tier, maybe even the third tier, because the next tier down might be Curtis Samuel at 11, 12. Might be Marvin Jones and some of those guys at $11, $12 million a year. Corey Davis might cost you 11, 12. He might be in that next tier, but Corey Davis might also be in the 9, 10 range. Keep in mind, we're not asking for them to go out and get a bona fide number one. We just want a compliment to Terry. We just want a true number two. Corey Davis is already established. I'm not a number one in this league. And he's okay with that. He's already established. I'm not a number one. I had a chance to be a one. I'm a two. I'm a damn good one, though. I think that if you go and you get Corey Davis and you pay him a 4-year, $40 million deal, $10 million a year, that's good money for a bona fide number two in this league. But what it also does is when Terry's deal is up in 2 years, and you may need to pay Terry after next season. When Terry's deal is up or Terry's looking for new money, you don't have to pay Terry $18, $19 million. You only have to pay Terry $13, $14. If Terry's blowing up and Terry's got a 1,500-yard season under his belt, hey, the situation has changed. Terry may be worth $18, $19 million. But let's say Terry gets you 1,137 yards next year and 8 touchdowns. That's a good year. That's a good year. But that's not $19 million a year money. But if you pay Kenny Golladay 17, or you pay Will Fuller 16, or you pay Juju Smith-Schuster 16 and a half, and I'm Terry, I'm looking at that guy and I'm saying, if you're going to pay him that, you better pay me. You better be willing to pay me more. Understand what the deals that you're signing to guys that haven't been here, guys that you're bringing in here. Understand what those deals, the ripple effects, have on other guys. You can sign Hunter Henry to a big deal. Why? There isn't another tight end on this roster that can feel some type of way about that. There isn't another guy that you feel like, man, if I sign him to a $12.5 million a year deal, that this guy's going to be feeling some type of way. And when negotiations start, he's looking at this guy's contract and saying, I need to be paid 13. There's not another one of those on the roster. But there is at the receiver position. You see where I'm going with this? You understand what we're doing here? Is you're setting precedents. You want to make sure that you're not overpaying to bring a guy in here at the expense of pissing off the rest of the locker room. That's what used to happen in Washington when Vinny was here, when Dan first got here, when they would forget about the Ryan Clarks and the Antonio Pierces of the world in order to go out and get Jeremiah Trotter and to go out and get Adam Archuleta. They would go out and spend lavishly on the guy that wasn't here, reward him for what he did for another organization instead of rewarding the guys that were already here. It sends the wrong message in your locker room. Pay Corey Davis $10, $11 million a year. 4 years, 40. 4 years, $44 million. So when Terry's deal is up, Terry can get 13, 14, maybe 15 a year, and you feel good about that. Understand that you have to set that pecking order up now. Understand that. You go get Kenny Golladay, you pay him 17 mil, Terry's going to want more or Terry's going to want to walk. And I don't blame him. Next thing I would do is I would go out and I would sign Mike Hilton. This is a guy that I want very badly. Oh, contingency plan for Corey Davis, because I don't think you're going to have to get into a bidding war for Corey Davis's services. I don't. I think everybody will be focused on Kenny Golladay and Will Fuller and Juju Smith-Schuster. And I think you can just go straight to Corey Davis and say, hey, we love you. We love you. You were our first guy in free agency. We want you. Here's how bad we want you. Lay out the money, Corey signs, and get him here. But in the event that that doesn't happen, in the event that he decides he wants to go back to Tennessee, or somebody offers him more money than Washington is willing to pay him, and they're not looking to get into a bidding war. Tim Patrick is my contingency plan for Corey Davis. He's 27 years old. He's on the rise. He's 6'4". He can run. He's on the precipice of having a breakout season and going over 1,000 yards. Last year, he got the opportunity and he took full advantage of it. I wouldn't have a problem with them going out and getting Tim Patrick and not spending big money to do it. And Tim Patrick would be below Corey Davis on the totem pole in terms of pay scale. You're talking about $7-8 million a year for Tim Patrick. You're talking about a 4-year, $32 million. I wouldn't even sign him that long. It'd probably be more like a 3-year, $24 million deal for Tim Patrick. Okay. I'd do that. And I would be cool with that. And then you know what I would do? I'm going to tell you what I would do in a second. Let's get to Mike Hilton. I want Mike Hilton bad. Mike Hilton is my number 17 free agent available this offseason. I told you we need a nickel in the worst way. Jimmy's cool. Jimmy's not a difference maker. Jimmy might actually be better served playing out wide. There's a debate to be had there. Mike Hilton is a legitimate nickel in this league. He's not just any nickel, though. He's a nickel with a safeties mentality. He's physical. You can blitz him. You can play coverage with him. I remember when we played against the Steelers this year, the guy that impressed me the most on their defense wasn't TJ Watt. It wasn't Cameron Hayward or Stephon Tuitt or none of those guys. The guy that jumped off the screen at me that was around the football, especially in that first half, couldn't shake him, was Mike Hilton. And I've always liked Mike Hilton. Always thought that this guy was a feisty competitor. But I love the way he was utilized in Pittsburgh. We're missing that type of dog in the nickel. I think we're a nickel and some linebackers away from really transforming this defense. We were picked on in the slot far too often last season, especially in games early in the season. It was too early to get us in the slot. It was too easy to get us in the slot. I think Mike Hilton is the kind of guy that could change the game for us. So hard to find good nickels in this league. We've been looking for one ever since we traded away Kendall Fuller the first time. Haven't really found a replacement since. I like Mike Hilton a lot. He's 27. Just turned 27 2 days ago. If you can't get Mike Hilton, I got 2 contingency plans in place. The first is Desmond King II. Here's a guy that could also double as your punt returner. We haven't had any luck with punt returners since Brandon Banks. No success at punt returning. We've had a bunch of fumbles, a bunch of muffs, and a bunch of fair catches since his departure. And what was Brandon Banks, like 10 years ago? 9, 8 years ago? I can't remember. It's been a while. Desmond King is one of the more lethal punt returners in the league as well. So you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone if you were to sign him. He's also a really good nickel. He's not better than Mike Hilton, but he's a good nickel. And then Justin Coleman is my other contingency plan. He just got released by the Detroit Lions 2 years into a 4-year deal. Justin Coleman was regarded as one of the best nickel corners in football when he was with the Seahawks. He was playing outstanding ball for the Seahawks, but you can't re-sign everybody. The Lions ripped him away. And obviously, when you get a new regime in there, I didn't sign you to this contract. I don't know you. Personally, I don't like you. Get the hell out of here. That's what happened to Justin Coleman. Well, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And Justin Coleman is exactly what the doctor ordered. He's 28. Desmond King's 27. Mike Hilton's 27. They're all in that range that you need these guys to be. Still good football left in front of them. I want Mike Hilton. He's not going to cost a ton. $8 million a year or so for a good nickel. 4 years, $32 million. 3 years, $29 million. I want Mike Hilton. The last thing I would do, and I didn't put it up here because this isn't a necessity. These are all necessities for me. These 5 moves that I've talked about in front of you. Going back to the beginning. Sheriff. Long-term deal. Darby. Re-sign. Hunter Henry, go get us a complete tight end. It'd be the first thing I do in free agency. Corey Davis. You don't have to go and outbid people for Kenny Golladay or for Will Fuller or for Juju Smith-Schuster. Let them have at that. We already, see, the teams that are looking to sign those guys, they don't have a stud already. They're looking for one. They're looking for a bona fide number 1. We don't need one. We have one. We need a compliment to him. If you draft a young guy and he comes in and he outshines Terry, then so be it. Terry would have already gotten paid by the time that guy gets paid. It's different. But to bring a guy in here, Terry sees him with his own 2 eyes get paid. Terry's going to want more than that guy. Understand that. Corey Davis, not going to command an inordinate amount of money. He's not going to put us in a position where we've got to pay way above market value for Terry when his deal is up in a couple of years. Corey Davis is the guy we need. Perfect compliment. He already knows his role in this league. He's a legitimate number 2. That's the guy that I want. And then the last thing to complete the cipher is Mike Hilton. Go get us a nickel corner. You get Darby back. You got your guys on the outside. Go get you a bona fide nickel. Mike Hilton's that guy. The last thing I want to do is, after this, right here, this money that you've spent, getting Darby back and getting Hunter Henry and Corey Davis and Mike Hilton, after you've spent that money, you sit back and you let the dust settle and the smoke clear. And then you say, I want John Ross. If he's still out there, and I think he will be, I think after you see all of those big tier wide receivers come off, and that's going to happen immediately, okay? You're going to see Kenny Golladay come off immediately. Juju Smith-Schuster is going to come off immediately. Will Fuller is going to come off immediately. Corey Davis is going to come off immediately. All right, these are the guys that are going to come off immediately. But then there's another tier. There's Nelson Aguilar. There's Curtis Samuel. There's Sammy Watkins. There's Marvin Jones. There's a bunch of these guys. They're going to come off. And then there may be another wave of guys like Tim Patrick, like I just mentioned, okay? And a bunch of other guys that I've talked about throughout this process that are going to come off. There's the T.Y. Hiltons of the world that are going to be out there. A.J. Green that's going to be out there. Some veterans that teams might be interested in. And after all that dust settles and all that smoke clears and John Ross is still sitting there waiting for a new home, that's when you go back in and you say, hey, John, we love you, bro. We love you. We think you got a chance to show everybody why you were a first-round pick. And you go get John Ross and you add him to Corey Davis. You add him to Terry McLaurin. And you add him to AGG. And you add him to Kelvin Harmon. And you add him to Cam Sims if you bring him back. And you let those guys compete. And the best five make the team, and the odd man out, if you can sneak him on the practice squad, so be it. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. So there you have it. That is my plan for free agency. That's how I would attack free agency. And I'll just tell you something else. If I want what I want, I want what I want. And if I can't get Corey Davis and Tim Patrick or somebody like that that I'm excited about, that's young, that I'm not going to have to pay a bunch of money to, isn't available, you know what I would do? I just say, don't worry about it. I just get another receiver in the draft. This is the thing, though, and this is what I'm thinking like how Ron's thinking. We got enough of those young boys already. We don't need any more of those. We got enough of those. It's the blind leading the blind right now. That's why they wanted Amari Cooper. They got enough young pups. Enough young Thundercats. They want a veteran, an established wide receiver to come in here and make this group whole. I think Corey Davis is a game changer. But he's not the speed demon that they're looking for, which is why I double back and go get me some John Ross. We know AGG isn't a speed demon. We know Kelvin Harmon isn't a speed demon. And Corey Davis can run, but he's no, speed demon. He's no guy that's going to scare a defense over the top. That's why you double back and you go and get John Ross. So, I think when it's all said and done, they could end up with 3 or 4 impactful free agent signings. It wouldn't shock me if none of this comes to fruition outside of Darby. I think they really want Darby back. I think they're going to get him back. It wouldn't shock me if none of this came to fruition. If they actually went out and got Curtis Samuel. They want speed. He is speed. I wouldn't be upset about it. I wouldn't be thrilled by it. But I would understand the move. Comfortable with the system. They know him. He knows them. And he adds speed, something that we need on the offensive side of the football. Specifically at the receiver position. But for me, Corey Davis does everything I need him to do. And I think you can double back and get you some speed. Worst case scenario, a guy like John Brown just got released from the Buffalo Bills. You can add John Brown to the mix. A veteran like that. He's 31, not ideal. But if you're desperate for speed, there's speed out there. You can add speed to this team and not have it cost you a ton of money. If that's what you're concerned about. I want Corey Davis. And I don't think they want another young wide receiver. They got enough of those already. If you're keeping score at home, every receiver we had on the roster last year, with the exception of Dontrell Inman, were either first or second year players in the league. Terry was in his second year. Cam Sims, I think he was in his third year, but he hadn't played. So for all intents and purposes, he was like a rookie. That was his first real sniff. AGG, in his limited snaps, a rookie. All the guys, Robert Foster came late. He was a veteran, but, I mean, he really didn't get any run for real. Jeff Badette got a couple of snaps in a few games. Essentially a rookie. And obviously, Isaiah Wright, undrafted rookie. Steven Sims, second-year player. That's not what they're looking for. They're not looking for another young guy to add to the mix. Because for all intents and purposes, Kelvin Harmon is a second-year player. He's going to be in his third year, but he's a redshirt sophomore after the injury. And it's his first year actually playing in this offense. So you want a veteran. You want a veteran that's played in this league, that's going to be able to come in here and get it done, hit the ground running, and continue to help this group grow. Corey Davis, to me, is that guy. So, with that said, I got no more super chats. I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. Really appreciate you. That's my plan for free agency. If anything changes, if any big moves happen, you know where you can find me. We'll be here. We'll break it all down. But in any event, I'm your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington football team. I got one more thing, and that's like the video. Subscribe to the LouieTeeNetwork for more great content if you haven't already done so. And turn on that notification bell, okay? We've got 195 likes. We got 415 of you watching right now. Let's get that like count up over 200. Really appreciate you guys for all of your assistance in that matter and all of your support watching and supporting the show. So with that said, I got a super chat here from William Edwards. Just to take us out of here, Williams writes, first of all, thank you for the super chat, William. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, hearing a lot about Alex being done dirty. Like, do people realize he made $20 million a year rehabbing? Chiefs cut offensive lineman guys coming off an injury like it's nothing. Shaking my mother effing head. Nah, I mean, look, people can have the opinion that they want to have. This was the smart move that Washington made. Alex last year proved that he couldn't go a full 16-game slate. We didn't even ask him to play 16 games. We just asked him to play the back end of the season, and he couldn't even last for that long. To pay him the money that he was going to make this year and assume that he would be able to stay healthy would be asinine. It would actually be some form of malpractice by the Washington organization to know that you could save nearly $15 million by moving on from Alex Smith when you know he's not the future, and to hold on to him just because you don't want to do him dirty, or to think that he could last a full 16-game slate, seeing what you saw last year, that would really be pure negligence on their part. They did the smart thing. They did the right thing. And anybody that thinks any differently, is, to me, either biased for Alex Smith or they just don't get it. And so it is what it is. Anyway, thank you for the super chat, William Edwards. With that said, I'm going to go ahead, glide to the side, and allow you guys to enjoy the rest of your evening. I thank you guys for joining me tonight on this show. Look forward to chopping it up with you tomorrow on the Louie T Network podcast. That should be coming at you a little bit earlier because I'm getting out of there. It's Friday, and I'm looking to get my Friday started off right. So we're going to knock that podcast out early and hit the weekend. So with that said, I will go ahead and exit stage left. I thank you guys for joining me. Really do appreciate you getting it over 200 likes. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you guys next week. Barring some kind of breaking news from the organization, I will see you guys next week. Have a good one. Take care.